Chapter 855. Since Ao Wushuang had failed to assassinate Ao Wushuang, she had quietly left alone. She no longer thought about the impossible task of assassinating Ao Wushuang. After quietly recuperating for a few days, she quietly came to Mount Longhu again and lurked beside the side peak where Wang Yuanshan had been. Soon. Although the absolute love destroyer formation was constantly absorbing her spiritual energy and Jinqi, Ao Wushuang seemed to be unaware of it. She just waited patiently by the side, waiting for the disciples of the Jingyi school who were guarding the formation to make a mistake. As the saying goes, everyone can make mistakes if they are not saints. No matter how powerful a cultivator was, he would still make mistakes. After waiting patiently for a few days, Ao Wushuang finally met a young disciple who had gone out alone. She immediately made her move. While Zhang Tianhe and the others were focused on the absolute love destroyer formation, she cast illusions around her. She wanted to sneak into the formation and find an opportunity to destroy it. Although she knew that she didn't have a powerful magic weapon, nor did she have the 5 magic swords that were enough to destroy the formation, Ao Wushuang knew that as long as the formation moved at this time, the general power of the formation would gather from the ground to the sky. As long as she could stop the power of the formation from gathering in the sky, she could also disturb the operation of the formation. However, Ao Wushuang didn't know whether she could stop the absolute love destroyer formation by doing this. She was like a person who had grasped at a life-saving straw. Even if there was only a little hope, she would try her best. She rushed toward the formation stone tunnel like crazy. Zhang Tianhe and the others were furious when they saw that Ao Wushuang dared to break into the hinterland of the Jingyi school alone. The disciples of the Jingyi school who were holding the formation shouted in unison, and the long swords on their backs suddenly jumped out. In an instant, the 7-star formation exploded, and the sword light shot in all directions. Although there was one person missing, the power of the formation controlled by Zhang Tianhe was still amazing. Although Ao Wushuang also had 7 fox tails, she didn't have the ability of the mystical silver fox. In the face of this powerful formation, Ao Wushuang's way was suddenly covered with sword light, and the crisscrossing sword chi made her shudder. These disciples of the Jingyi school could easily kill them in a one-on-one fight, but when they joined forces to form a formation, the power was earth-shattering, which frightened her. Ao Wushuang saw the sword chi in front of her. If she took another step forward, she might be cut into countless pieces. She looked up, gritted her teeth, and then sprinted madly up the mountain. Zhang Tianhe was shocked and shouted, "Stop her!" At this time, the power of the 7-star formation was fully displayed. If the Xian sect's Grand Destruction formation encountered such a situation, they could only watch helplessly. Although the Grand Destruction formation was powerful, it could not be moved. On the other hand, the 7-star formation could attack and defend freely. The disciples of the Jingyi school immediately jumped up and followed Ao Wushuang. Ao Wushuang moved extremely fast. Her eyes were fixed on the ray of divine light on the top of the mountain. Her figure was as fast as lightning, and she quickly approached. When the disciples of the Jingyi school saw that they were getting further and further away from Ao Wushuang, they couldn't help but be furious. They all released their powerful magical weapons and long swords, ready to intercept and kill her halfway. Clang, clang, clang. With a crisp sound, a row of sharp swords suddenly appeared in front of Ao Wushuang. They stared at her as if they had set up an inescapable net, waiting for her to break through. At this time, there was a sword formation in front of Ao Wushuang, and there were pursuers behind her. There was really no way out. She made up her mind and roared, ready to rely on her fox spirit's real body to break through. Seeing that she was so crazy, Zhang Tianhe sneered in his heart and shouted, "You're courting death." As he spoke, he was about to use the sword formation to shred the bold fox spirit. However, just as Ao Wushuang was about to come into contact with the sword formation, a huge horsetail whisk suddenly flew over from the sky and swept toward Ao Wushuang. This attack came without warning and contained a great force. Although Ao Wushuang was a 7-tailed fox spirit, she had no way to fight back. With a loud bang, Ao Wushuang was immediately sent flying backward by the chop and fell to the ground. Seeing that Ao Wushuang was about to die here, a faint voice sounded in everyone's ears, "Don't hurt her." Zhang Tianhe and the others had an idea, and the long swords immediately tilted and stabbed into the side of Ao Wushuang with a clanging sound. In an instant, an iron cage made of long swords was formed around her. At this time, Ao Wushuang turned over and rushed wildly toward the sword cage around her. But at this time, the sword formation was closed, so how could she break through it? After trying a few times, Ao Wushuang saw that the sword cage didn't move at all. She roared, "If you have the ability, do it openly." What's the use of sneak attacks? A young disciple of the Jingyi school shouted, "How dare you? Do you think you're qualified to fight with our leader?" At this time, Zhang Tianhe and the others all turned over and bowed in the direction of the main peak of the Jingyi school. They said, "Greetings, leader. How should we deal with this matter?" Ao Wushuang was shocked. The one who attacked just now was Zhang Tianshi? Why did Zhang Tianshi personally deal with me? The Japanese cultivation sect had attacked Mount Longhu, and the Shantian sect had tried to seize power. Zhang Tianshi had always been sitting on the fishing platform, as if he didn't care about the affairs of the world. But at this time he had personally come to deal with her? Ao Wushuang was in despair in an instant. She knew what the words Zhang Tianshi meant in the Chinese cultivation world. It meant that the patriarch of the oldest family in the Chinese cultivation world, which had been passed down for nearly 2,000 years, had his eyes on her. Although Wang Yuanshan was a little more powerful than Zhang Tianshi, the power that Zhang Tianshi could mobilize was far from what Wang Yuanshan could compare with. Behind Zhang Tianshi, there was not only a huge cultivation family of Zhang in the south and Kong in the north, but also a huge sect of the Chinese cultivation world supporting him. Therefore, although Wang Yuanshan was known as the number one in the world, he had still been captured alive by Zhang Tianshi. If such a person wanted to deal with Ao Wushuang, there would be no chance of winning unless Ao Wushuang became the mystical silver fox. In despair, Ao Wushuang couldn't help but roar, "Zhang Tianshi, are you so cold-blooded and cruel? Do you want to watch Wang Yuanshan die in person? Decent people like you are dignified, but in fact your thoughts are dirty and your means are despicable. Aren't you ashamed?" However, no matter how Ao Wushuang cursed, Zhang Tianshi did not respond. It seemed that he was just silently watching the movement of the Absolute Love Destroyer formation. Just as Ao Wushuang was cursing, the light gathered on the top of the side peak of the formation became brighter and brighter. When it was about to reach the apex, something unexpected happened. At this time, if someone were to look carefully in the stone cave of the formation, they would find that the runes in this huge stone cave had become incredibly bright. Each line seemed to be a groove that could transport wandering spiritual power and energy. They transported countless energy to the center of the formation and kept the spiritual power and jinqi flowing fast. However, a gap had appeared in a small hole that Li Xin had accidentally pierced with the seven-star sword. At first, the gap was not obvious. It was like a tire on a slowly moving sports car had become loose, and the negative effect was not very obvious. However, as the speed of the sports car increased, the kinetic energy generated gradually increased. Gradually, the tire became more and more loose, and it began to shake violently. At an extremely high speed, the slightest shake could cause the car to crash and people to die. This was already the case when driving a car, let alone an extremely dense and complicated formation. This crack slowly grew larger and larger, gradually spreading throughout the entire rune groove. Finally, when the array formation revolved to the highest point and gathered the greatest amount of energy, this crack completely broke apart into a massive hole. Magic power and true essence instantly crazily gushed out from this hole. The powerful energy that had been congregated in the formation was instantly condensed into a ball. With a loud bang, it was as if an atomic bomb had exploded inside the side peak of Mount Longhu. Suddenly, the ground of Mount Longhu was shaken like a carpet that had been shaken by someone. The forest trembled and the heaven and earth shook. Ao Wushuang, who had been lying on the ground, was almost shaken into the air. The expressions of Zhang Tianhe and the others changed drastically, and they all looked in the direction of the side peak with pale faces. At this time, the side peak had been shrouded in a thick cloud of smoke and dust. The original formation stone tunnel had completely collapsed, and the towering pillar of light had disappeared in an instant. The vortex of thunderclouds that had been rolling in the sky had also scattered in all directions. The absolute love extinguishing formation, which had been prepared for 10 years, had failed at the last moment. Ao Wushuang was stunned for a moment, and then she was ecstatic. She wanted to raise her head and laugh, but she found that there seemed to be something choking in her chest. Her heart was boiling and her eyes were red and hot. Tears rolled down her cheeks. Meanwhile, Zhang Tianhe and the others were already stunned. They couldn't understand why the array formation would suddenly collapse. After this loud noise, the world suddenly fell silent. After a long time, a sigh slowly came from the thunderclouds. When Zhang Tianhe heard this voice, his whole body shook. He immediately knelt down and said sadly, "Master, I, Zhang Tianhe, have failed to live up to your expectations. Please punish me." The other disciples of the Jingyi school also knelt down. All of them were crying, feeling indignant and sad. Zhang Tianshi was silent for a while, and then his voice came slowly. This is fate and it can't be changed by human beings. Get up all of you. After saying that, he fell into complete silence and did not speak again. However, Zhang Tianhe and the others knelt on the ground and refused to get up. They knew that they had ruined the great event that the master had prepared for 10 years. Moreover, if the mystical silver fox didn't die, the consequences would be unimaginable. Their mistakes would be even more heinous. Although they didn't have the vertical sword formation at this time, Ao Wushuang was still locked in the sword cage and couldn't escape. She looked eagerly in the direction of Su Yi in the distance, and her heart was full of expectation and worry. Wang Yuanshan, can you come back alive? Chapter 856. Although Zhang Tianshi didn't pursue the matter any further, Zhang Ling quickly came out of seclusion and rushed over. She had been meditating, but there had been an earth-shattering explosion on the side peak next to her. She had almost been sent flying, so how could she cultivate normally? Zhang Ling flew out of the hall and saw smoke and dust filling the top of the side peak from afar. It was where the Dharmakaya of the absolute love extinguishing formation was. Zhang Ling's heart suddenly sank and she felt a chill run down her spine. You're almost there. At this time, Zhou Ping, who had been guarding her, also rushed out. She only took a glance and exclaimed, "Oh no, could it be that the formation has been broken?" Although Zhang Ling had secretly guessed this result, she still glared at Zhou Ping as if she hated her jinx. Zhang Ling shouted in a low voice, "Let's go and have a look." The two of them soon arrived at the top of the mountain and saw Ao Wushuang, who was imprisoned in the sword cage. Zhang Ling immediately frowned and asked sternly, "What happened?" Zhang Ling was a senior cultivator among the older generation of cultivators, and Zhou Ping was her eldest disciple. Her seniority was also very high among the younger generation of cultivators. Therefore, as soon as the two of them appeared, Zhang Tianhe and the disciples of the Jingyi school came over to greet them. Zhang Tianhe knelt on the ground with a thud and said with a face full of shame, "Eldest aunt, I failed to live up to the trust of the sect. When the absolute love extinguishing formation was activated, it failed. The formation was damaged and the cliff collapsed." Zhang Ling's face darkened when she heard this. Although her cultivation in the Jingyi school was not high, she had a high status and power. She had naturally participated in what had happened 10 years ago. At this time, when she heard that the plan that her younger brother had painstakingly planned for 10 years had failed, how could she not be angry? Zhang Ling was furious and shouted, "Why did the formation fail?" As she spoke, her eyes suddenly swept over Ao Wushuang with incomparable sharpness. Although Zhang Tianhe also had some suspicions that it had something to do with Ao Wushuang, he couldn't confirm it, so he didn't dare to make wild guesses. He just said, "Uncle Master, it happened so suddenly. I don't know what's going on either. In short, as the person in charge of the magic formation, I have an unshirkable responsibility for what happened in front of me. However, the other brothers are innocent." As soon as Zhang Tianhe said this, the brothers next to him were all moved and said, "Eldest aunt, this has nothing to do with Zhang Tianhe. Don't punish him. If you want to punish someone, punish us." It could be said that Zhang Ling had watched Zhang Tianhe grow up. Ever since Zhang Tianhe had lost to Li Yundong, his temperament had changed. His original impetuousness and arrogance had been completely wiped away. Although he was a direct descendant of the celestial master, he did not have a trace of a playboy's aura. Although Zhang Ling was angry and resentful of what was happening in front of her, she couldn't help but secretly nod at Zhang Tianhe's actions. She thought to herself, "My nephew has finally improved. It seems that the previous few setbacks weren't in vain. My nephew has finally made progress. It seems that the previous setbacks haven't been in vain." In Zhang Ling's opinion, the crime of destroying the absolute love-extinguishing formation was so great that even if Zhang Tianhe was Zhang Tianhe's biological son, he couldn't get away with it. If he was blamed, he would probably be imprisoned for 10 years. If this crime fell on him, it would be very disadvantageous to his cultivation. Zhang Ling was deeply gratified by Zhang Tianhe's change. She wanted to help him get away with it, so she pointed at Ao Wushuang and asked, "Why is she here?" As she said this, Zhang Ling quickly winked at Zhou Ping. Zhou Ping had been with Zhang Ling since she was a child, so she knew her very well. In addition, she had always been secretly in love with Zhang Tianhe. Seeing that he had caused such a big trouble, she wanted to help him get away with it, but she didn't know how to do it. At this time, seeing Zhang Ling winking at her, how could she not understand? Zhou Ping immediately shouted, "Ao Wushuang, did you destroy this formation?" At this time, Ao Wushuang had let go of what she was most worried about. She was only worried about the safety of Wang Yuanshan. She looked at the northeast in a daze as if she hadn't heard Zhou Ping's words. She didn't say a word or blink. Zhou Ping was a little angry. Just as she was about to step forward, she was stopped by Zhang Ling and shouted, "Ao Wushuang, you know you have a guilty conscience. Don't you dare to speak?" Ao Wushuang turned her head and looked at her lightly. She smiled and turned her head again, still not saying a word. The others were all furious and wanted to scold this bold fox spirit, but Zhang Ling had already achieved her goal. She shouted sternly, "Ao Wushuang, you are so bold. You trespassed into the forbidden area of our Jingyi school, destroyed my magic formation and ruined my plan. Do you know how big your sin is?" This time Ao Wushuang didn't even look at her. She was still looking into the distance, as if she was looking forward to seeing her sweetheart appear in the next second. Seeing that she was ignoring her, Zhang Ling's face darkened. She said to Zhang Tianhe, "It's obvious that this fox spirit has eaten the heart of a bear and the heart of a leopard. She came here to make trouble, trying to destroy the magic formation and save the mystical silver fox. Zhang Tianhe, it's not your fault. You can get up." Zhang Tianhe hesitated for a moment and asked, "Then, what about Ao Wushuang?" Zhang Ling snorted coldly and said, "Unrighteousness leads to self-destruction. Kill her on the spot." The other disciples of the Jingyi school had long hated Ao Wushuang. If it weren't for her, they wouldn't have had to bear such a big sin. At this time, hearing Zhang Ling's words, he immediately looked at Ao Wushuang with a murderous look. Zhang Tianhe was shocked and quickly said, "Auntie, but she's a member of the Fox Zen sect." Zhang Ling immediately became furious. "What's wrong with the Fox Zen sect? What's there to be afraid of?" Zhang Tianhe said in a low voice awkwardly, "No, Auntie. Now the person in charge of the Fox Zen sect is Li Yundong." Zhang Ling was speechless when she heard this. A crooked and evil sect was in charge of a great cultivator who could be said to be their benefactor. If Li Yundong hadn't single-handedly defeated the Japanese cultivation sects at Mount Longhu, the Jingyi school would have lost a lot of face. As the saying goes, when you beat a dog you have to look at its master. What's more, Li Yundong's love and partiality for his subordinates of the Fox Zen school could be seen at the Taoist assembly, especially how much Li Yundong doted on Su Chan. Even a blind man could see that, and Ao Wushuang was Su Chan's master. With these layers of relationships, if they overdid things and Li Yundong got angry, what could they do? Li Yundong had already reached the top phase of the Jinshin at Mount Longhu. Now, with his cultivation and talent, he had probably reached the Thunder Retribution phase. Although the power of the Jingyi school was huge and they were not afraid of Li Yundong at present, the Jingyi school was in trouble both inside and outside. It was not easy for them to ease their relationship with Li Yundong because of the previous battle on Mount Longhu. If they were to fight with a Thunder Retribution Master because of this matter, it would not be worth it. However, Zhang Ling couldn't swallow what she had said before in front of the juniors. For a moment, her face turned red and white and she didn't know what to say. Seeing this, Zhou Ping hurriedly said, "Shitty Tianhe, hurry up and take the other shitty to seal up this place. Just trap the mystical silver fox here. It won't be too late to deal with her after we go to Li Yundong and ask for an explanation." The reason why Zhou Ping had always been able to win Zhang Ling's trust and favor was not because of her high cultivation talent, but because she had an exquisite heart that ordinary people could not match. She was very good at figuring out people's minds and could give herself the idea she wanted when she needed it. When Zhang Ling heard this, she immediately said decisively, "Yes, you're right. Ao Wushuang is a member of the Fox Zen sect. Since Li Yundong is the leader of the Fox Zen sect, he should be responsible for this matter." As she said this, she turned to Zhou Ping and said, "Go to his house and tell him what happened here. Ask him to give us an explanation. Otherwise, don't blame us for being rude." Zhou Ping was so scared that her pretty face turned pale. She thought to herself, Master, are you serious? You want me to go to this big villain and say such things? He can crush me with one finger now." Zhou Ping could also see how fast Li Yundong's cultivation was. When he was in Mount Tianlong, he hadn't even reached the Yangshan phase, but now he was already catching up with the top cultivation masters in the world. Seeing Zhou Ping's dispirited look, Zhang Ling couldn't help but say angrily, "You good-for-nothing bastard, what are you afraid of? Don't you know what it means to walk all over the world with reason, and to be unable to move an inch without reason?" Li Yundong connived at the disciples of the sect to commit such a heinous crime. I don't believe that he would dare to not give an explanation. Why do you want me to go to the sect at this time? It was the awakening Thunder Retribution period, and no one was willing to come out of seclusion. Zhou Ping had no choice but to say in a low voice, "Master, I see. I'll go now." Zhang Ling nodded and couldn't help but turn to look at Zhang Tianhe. Seeing that he was hesitant to speak, she had an idea and immediately said, Tianhe, you go too. Zhang Tianhe was stunned. Me? But soon he agreed and said, okay, I'll listen to eldest aunt. Zhou Ping was immediately overjoyed. She immediately regarded the hard task in front of her as a good one. She suppressed the joy in her heart and said to Zhang Tianhe with a smile, Shitty Tianhe, we're going down the mountain together again. Zhang Tianhe remembered that, apart from the Taoist assembly, the last time he had gone down the mountain with Zhou Ping was when they had gone to besiege the Fox Zen sect and joined forces with the 6 major sects to besiege Mount Tianlong. Zhang Tianhe was filled with emotion for a moment. He saluted and said, Eldest Shiji, please take care of me along the way. Zhou Ping was overjoyed and finally couldn't help but smile. Don't mention it. I still need Shitty Tianhe to take care of me. Zhang Ling knew what her disciple was thinking. She had asked Zhang Tianhe to accompany her. On the one hand, it was to strengthen the reputation of the sect so that her disciple wouldn't be at a disadvantage in public. On the other hand, it was to matchmake the two of them, which would be a good thing in the future. Zhang Ling shouted, Don't talk nonsense. Such a big thing has happened and you're still in the mood to be polite. Hurry up and go. Zhou Ping was shocked and flew to Tianan City with Zhang Tianhe. The two of them flew for a long time. When they reached the ground of Tianan City from a distance, they could see a large, dense thundercloud rolling in the sky. There were bursts of thunder in the thundercloud, and it was as dense as a drum. These days, Zhang Tianshi and Zhang Kongyun had been taking turns to go through the thunder retribution. Zhou Ping and Zhang Tianhe were used to the sound of thunder, and it was as normal as eating and drinking. However, they had never heard such dense and loud thunder. Especially when they looked from afar, they could see 4 faint whirlpools in the thundercloud. Zhang Tianhe's face suddenly changed and he whispered, No way? Zhou Ping asked curiously, What do you mean? Zhang Tianhe looked at the rolling thundercloud in shock and said, This seems to be the 9th heaven divine thunder. Could it be that Li Yundong has already reached the 9th level of thunder retribution? Zhou Ping was shocked. That's impossible. This is his first time going through the thunder retribution and he can reach the 9th level? Zhang Tianhe's face darkened and he said slowly, It's not impossible. Do you know why the mystical silver fox was called the mystical silver fox? Do you think she was born to be called the mystical silver fox? Although Zhou Ping had been re-educated by Zhang Lingji and had a high seniority, she was not a direct disciple after all. Zhang Tianhe, on the other hand, was a legitimate direct disciple. He could read many of the secret books and records of the sect. Over the past few days, he had reflected on his painful experience and started cultivating again. He had read a lot of books and records including many old events. Zhou Ping asked curiously, Yes, what's the original name of the mystical silver fox? Why was she called the mystical silver fox later? Zhang Tianhe pointed to the thundercloud in the sky and said, It was because the mystical silver fox once stole the secret of heaven when she was going through the thunder retribution and comprehended the profound truth of the way of Xian, so she was called the mystical silver fox. Zhou Ping suddenly understood, but then she was shocked and cried out, Is Li Yundong also stealing the secret of heaven now? Chapter 857. Although Li Yundong had rested for a while these days, Ruan Hongling and the others were too timid to tell him about the mystical silver fox. They didn't want to hide it on purpose, but they wanted to protect Li Yundong. Ruan Hongling knew that if Li Yundong rushed to Japan in his current state, he would be courting death and it would be in vain. Therefore, Li Yundong had been concentrating on crossing the thunder tribulation with the little girl these days. After the yin and yang qi of the two of them converged, the changes were extremely obvious. As the saying goes, the lonely yang does not grow and the lonely yin does not grow. When Li Yundong only had yuan yang qi in his body, he could only stay in the clouds of the thunder tribulation for 1 or 2 minutes at most. But now the yin and yang qi in his body were gathered and they were endless. He could stay in the clouds for more than 10 minutes and the time was even longer. The longer he could stay in the clouds, the more spiritual qi he could absorb. Moreover, Li Yundong had experienced the power of the heavenly thunder when he first started cultivating. Although the power of the heaven tribulation and the thunder tribulation were different, they were all from weak to strong. There were a total of 81 heavenly thunders. In the past, Li Yundong's strength was not strong. He didn't have a yang spirit or a jinshin. Naturally, it was impossible for him to withstand the thunder tribulation. Therefore he could only focus on avoiding it. If he could avoid 81 heavenly thunders he would pass. However, the power of heaven was unpredictable. If it was so easy to get through the heaven tribulation, the cultivators in the world would not have to be afraid of it. The last heavenly thunder was so wide and powerful that Li Yundong still remembered it clearly. It was impossible to avoid it by relying on human strength. There were 9 realms of the thunder tribulation. In each realm he had to withstand 9 heavenly thunders in a row. Previously, Li Yundong had to withstand 9 heavenly thunders with increasing power by himself, so that he could break through to the primary realm of the thunder tribulation. However, after reaching the second realm, he had to experience 18 heavenly thunders with increasing power. The further he went, the more heavenly thunders he had to go through, and the more powerful they would be. After reaching the 9th realm, the power of 81 heavenly thunders was unimaginable to ordinary people. If Li Yundong hadn't obtained Su Chan's primordial yin qi, he might not have been able to break through to the 9th level even if he had been given another 10 years. If cultivation could only rely on time and hard work to break through, the world would be full of thunder retribution and Jinshin masters. The first half of Wang Chongyang's life was wasted and dejected. He was cynical of the world and accomplished nothing. Lu Dongbin went to Chang and to take the imperial examinations at the age of 46 and failed every time he tried. He Xinggu, in her budding years, became a tofu beauty, selling tofu to support her family. If they didn't have any fortuitous encounters in life, they would just be ordinary people among the masses. However, Wang Chongyang met Lu Dongbin and received his teachings. That was how he founded the Chuanjin sect. Lu Dongbin met Han Zhongli and was enlightened by him. He Xinggu met Tai Guili, Lu Dongbin and Zhang Guolao. That was how she became the only female immortal among the 8 immortals. Before they had these fortuitous encounters, no one dared to say what would happen to them in the future. Maybe Wang Chongyang would be a loathsome Wang Baofeng for the rest of his life, Lu Dongbin would be a destitute student for the rest of his life, and He Xinggu would be a tofu beauty at best for the rest of her life. But once they had a fortuitous encounter, they immediately became like the dragon in the wind and the tiger in the clouds. From then on, the golden scales turned into dragons. It could be seen that fortuitous encounters were more important than talent, and even more precious than hard work. Li Yundong had met Su Chan, Ziyuan, and even Zhou Qin. That was why he had been able to make great progress in cultivation. If he hadn't met them, he would probably have been a useless otaku for the rest of his life. At this time, as soon as the yin and yang qi in Li Yundong's body merged, it was like a dragon and a tiger, meeting the wind and clouds. All the way he broke through 7 realms in a row. In addition to the first realm that he had broken through at the beginning, he rushed straight to the final 9th realm. When he reached the 9th realm, Zhou Qin, Su Chan, and Ziyuan didn't dare to go through the thunder tribulation again, because the power of the heavenly thunder at this time was so strong that it could kill them in seconds. The power of the first thunder tribulation couldn't be compared with the power of the 9th thunder tribulation. The difference between the two was like the difference between the college entrance examination and the doctoral examination. If they stayed by the side for a while, they would be shocked by the abundant and terrifying power of heaven in the heavenly thunder. They would be numb all over and lose the ability to move freely, let alone accept the baptism of the heavenly thunder. Some cultivators knew that the mystical silver fox had once become one of the best cultivators in the world, and she had even become one of the most terrifying devils since ancient times. However, most of them didn't know how she did it. They just guessed that the mystical silver fox must have stolen the secret of heaven, so she became a 9-tailed celestial fox. But what was the secret of heaven? The cultivators couldn't give a specific answer. They had their own guesses and there were different opinions. But only Li Yundong and the mystical silver fox knew what the secret of heaven was. The secret of heaven was a glimmer of hope for heaven. The power of the heavenly thunder was so great that if the divine thunder of the 9th heaven struck down, mountains and rivers could be smashed, and heaven and earth could be separated, let alone the small human beings. However, although the power of the heavenly thunder was great enough to kill everything, all living things in the world began with thunder. Only when the lightning struck the water did it give birth to life. It could be seen that there was a glimmer of life in the heavenly thunder. The reason why people could defeat heaven was because of the supreme wisdom and perseverance of the spirits of all living things. They could catch this fleeting glimmer of life under the constant bombardment of the heavenly thunder. The heavenly thunder was full of vitality and the power of heaven. Cultivators had to absorb the remaining vitality and the power of heaven at the moment when their yang spirit was split apart. However, most cultivators couldn't catch the fleeting glimmer of life after the heavenly thunder. It was this little bit of unique power that made the mystical silver fox reborn. However, this glimmer of life was not something that anyone who was going through the thunder retribution could catch. The mystical silver fox had sneaked into the Buddhist sect to cultivate and obtain the Bo Yuan Yang Qi of Huifa. Then, she cultivated in the Taoist sect and understood the truth of Buddhism and Taoism. In the end, she had the capital to steal the secret of heaven. At this time, Li Yundong also understood the profound truth of Buddhism and Taoism. His body was a combination of yin and yang, and he was the reincarnated Wisdom King. At this time, his talent, opportunity and cultivation were no worse than that of the mystical silver fox who had not yet stolen the secret of heaven. After the baptism of the 8 stages of thunder retribution, Li Yundong's jinshin had been condensed and incredibly thick. At this time his whole body was emitting a dazzling golden light. Even the thick thunderclouds could not hide the light of his jinshin. At this time, the sky seemed to have sensed Li Yundong's challenge. As long as he survived this thunder retribution, Li Yundong would jump into the 9th realm of flying immortal, which was also the last realm of cultivation. Once he reached the 9th realm, it meant that Li Yundong had the admission ticket and qualification certificate to enter the heaven realm. As long as he was willing, he could ascend to become an immortal at any time and become a part of the heaven realm. From then on, the heavenly thunder would no longer be a threat to him, but a sharp weapon that he could use to threaten secular cultivators. In other words, Li Yundong would jump from being oppressed to being oppressed from now on. This was like a serf turning over and becoming a landlord. From then on, the world would change greatly. But how could God easily let a person who used to be a serf turn over and become a landlord so easily? At this moment, the majesty of the heaven had suffered the most serious provocation, and the heavenly thunder had burst out with unprecedented power. The power of the 9th heaven thunder was equal to that of the 9th heaven thunder, but the only difference was that the 9th heaven thunder did not have any vitality, so if one was hit, they would die. However, there was a glimmer of vitality in the 9th heaven thunder. As long as one could grasp it, one could come back from the dead. At this time the heavenly thunder was dense and rolling. 81 bolts of heavenly thunder struck down continuously. The heavenly thunder was so dense that it was as if 81 giant bombs had exploded in the sky in a row. The rumbling sound was continuous and shocking. At the beginning, Li Yundong's jinshin remained motionless under the violent bombardment. It was like a solid rock in a stormy sea. No matter how the rain and wind blew, or how the heavenly thunder danced wildly, it was as steady as a mountain. At this time Su Chan, Ziyuan, and Zhou Qin were standing on the balcony, looking up at the thunderclouds in the sky nervously. The little foxes of the Fox Zen school, Li Yundong's disciple Lin Miao, and Ziyuan's junior sister Ruan Hongling were also standing on the balconies on both sides, staring at the sky. At this time the sky was filled with flashes of lightning and rolling thunder. It was like an ancient battlefield where the fighting shook the sky. Many mortals in Tianan City were also shocked by the rare sound of thunder. They stared at the sky with their mouths agape, not knowing what was going on. Although the speed of the heavenly thunder was extremely fast, Su Chan and the others still nervously and carefully counted for Li Yundong. 68, 69, 70? Su Chan grabbed the handrail of the balcony nervously and couldn't help exclaiming, "Sister Ziyuan, it's the 70th heavenly thunder. Ah, the 71st, the 72nd. The 8th thunder has passed and now it's the 9th. At first, the speed of the heavenly thunder was extremely fast and extremely dense, but the later it went, the slower it became. It was as if an invisible giant had to raise the Mjolnir hammer higher and longer every time it fell. Especially after the last heavenly thunder of the 8th thunder, Li Yundong's jinshin was finally smashed by the heavenly thunder. Ziyuan, Su Chan, Zhou Qin, and other cultivators with higher cultivation could even see the fragments of the jinshin rolling in the thunderclouds in the heavenly thunder. Li Yundong quickly focused his mind, and his jinshin yang spirit gathered together again. But as soon as it was gathered, the 73rd heavenly thunder suddenly fell and smashed his jinshin yang spirit into pieces again. This repeated until the 99th and 80th heavenly thunder. The last heavenly thunder did not fall for a long time, and Li Yundong seemed to be at the end of his tether, unable to gather his jinshin for a long time. At this time, Zhang Qianhe and Zhou Ping also arrived downstairs of Li Yundong's residence. For a moment the two of them forgot to go upstairs. They all focused their attention on the sky, waiting for the 81st heavenly thunder to fall. After this heavenly thunder, if Li Yundong failed, there would be no need for them to go up again. Without Li Yundong they wouldn't have to worry so much. They could directly punish Ao Wushuang. But if Li Yundong passed through this last heavenly thunder, he would be on an equal footing with the leaders of any sect in the world. From then on, any cultivator in the world would have to respectfully call him Great Jinren when they saw him. This 20-year-old boy would have the qualifications and strength to establish a sect. But they didn't know whether after this heavenly thunder, there would be one less great master in the world, or one more great master who could steal the secrets of heaven. In addition, yesterday, it seems that I didn't do the update on the mobile phone. Some readers came early in the morning to ask me if I was wrong. Tang Tang, I'd like to state here that I'm only responsible for updating the website. I'm not responsible for any updates in other places, so someone must have made a mistake on the mobile phone. If there's a mistake in the update, I'll definitely be responsible, such as the previous UG. But if there are any chapters on other websites that are completely inconsistent, I can't do anything about it because I didn't do it, and it's not under my control. I can't do anything about it even if I want to. Even if I can, I don't have so much time and energy to do it. In the future, if you find that the content of the chapter is inconsistent with the content of the book on the mobile phone, you might as well log on to the official website to see the updated content. Everything will be based on the website updates. Chapter 858. The might of the heavenly thunder could not be withstood by a body of flesh and blood. However, humans were the wisest of all living things, and yet they were able to find a way out of the impossible. When Zhang Qianhe and Zhou Ping saw the 991st bolt of heavenly thunder fall, the world was instantly illuminated. Even cultivators like them couldn't help but cover their eyes and tilt their heads, not daring to look directly at such a light. The deafening sound of thunder pierced their eardrums and made them feel pain. Countless glasses in Tianan City were shattered by the earth-shattering thunder. Many residents were so frightened by the thunder that they rushed out of their homes and looked at the sky in fear, as if the end of the world was coming in the next second. Zhang Qianhe and Zhou Ping couldn't help but turn pale. After the light of the heavenly thunder disappeared, they removed their hands from their eyes. Zhou Ping grabbed Zhang Qianhe's sleeve with trepidation and said in a trembling voice, "Shitty Qianhe, how could anyone survive such a powerful heavenly thunder?" Zhou Ping had always been very strong in the past, but in front of Zhang Qianhe she seemed very docile. Zhang Qianhe also whispered with fear on his face, "Man can conquer nature. There will always be someone who can defeat the power of heaven, but I don't know if Jinrenli can do it." Zhou Ping said in a low voice, "Then do you think this Li Jinrenli, did he succeed?" Zhang Qianhe looked at the sky with a solemn expression. At this time the thunderclouds were no longer rolling and boiling, and the sky slowly calmed down. After a while lightning flashed and it began to rain. The rain was delicate and gentle, immediately comforting many people who had been frightened by the heavenly thunder. Zhang Qianhe sighed softly and said, "It's not clear yet. Let's go and visit Jinrenli. We'll know whether he succeeded or failed in a while." As he spoke, the two walked upstairs together. Upstairs, Zhang Qianhe reached out and knocked on the door. A crisp female voice came from inside. "You're here. Who is it?" There was an unconcealable joy in this voice, and the crackling footsteps made it seem that the person who came was incomparably excited. Zhang Qianhe immediately said to Zhou Ping with great emotion, "There is an extremely young great master in today's cultivation world. Alas, I don't know when I will be able to cultivate to this level. Jinrenli's cultivation speed is really beyond our reach. I'm ashamed of my inferiority." Zhou Ping's gaze was a little complicated. Normally she would have sneered at them to express her disdain, but at this time she felt that everything was fine with Zhang Qianhe by her side. Her mood had also become much better, and she was not in the mood to find fault with others. Zhou Ping looked at Zhang Qianhe with adoration in her eyes and said softly, "Shitty Qianhe, you don't have to belittle yourself. In my eyes you have always been the best of our Jingyi school. No matter who you compare with, you will not be inferior." Furthermore, there was an order to one's cultivation, and there was a specialization. It didn't mean that one's cultivation would be higher or greater than one's in the future. If a hero was judged by age, then Jinren Wang Chongyang would not have achieved so much in the future. Hearing this, Zhang Qianhe smiled slightly and couldn't help turning his head to look at Zhou Ping. He usually didn't have any special feelings for this Shiji of his. At this time, when he heard her say this, he saw that her eyes were particularly gentle when she looked at him, completely devoid of her usual shrewdness. He couldn't help but feel his heart skip a beat, as if he had understood something. For a moment, his eyes seemed to be enlightened. The two of them looked at each other at the door and for a moment they were stunned. It wasn't until Su Chan pulled the door open that they came to their senses and turned their heads back in embarrassment. When Su Chan saw Zhou Ping, the joy on her face suddenly disappeared. She said with some vigilance, "What are you doing here?" At this time, Zhou Ping's heart was pounding, so she didn't care about these things with Su Chan. She just lowered her head, blushed, and kept silent like a little girl. After all, Zhang Qianhe was born in a prestigious family, and his upbringing was extremely strict. He could control himself in any situation. He quickly calmed down, coughed dryly, and said, "Zhang Qianhe of the Jingyi school, Zhou Ping, would like to meet Jinrenli." Su Chan looked him up and down and blinked. "I know you. Why are you looking for our Palm sect?" Seeing that Zhang Tianhe was speaking politely, the little girl didn't open the door, nor did she move out of the way, although the vigilance on her face had lessened a lot. At this time, Zhou Ping came to her senses. Seeing that Su Chan was quite rude to Zhang Tianhe, her face darkened. She was about to scold her, but Zhang Tianhe immediately quietly pulled her back, and she shut her mouth again. Zhang Tianhe smiled slightly and saluted. "We are here to congratulate Jinren Li on breaking through the 9th level of Thunder Retribution." Su Chan immediately beamed with joy and said proudly, "How did you know that our Palm sect has broken through the 9th level of Thunder Retribution? You're amazing. How did you get here so quickly?" Zhang Tianhe and Zhou Ping looked at each other and thought to themselves, sure enough, Li Yundong has broken through the 9th level of Thunder Retribution. At this time, a gentle man's voice sounded from inside the door. It was not very magnetic, but it was as beautiful as the sound of nature. There was an indescribable feeling in it. Zhang Tianhe only felt that the voice was full of vitality, as if a dying person could live a little longer after hearing it. "Channer, don't block the door. There are distinguished guests here. Why don't you let them in? Is this how our Fox Zen sect treats its guests?" Su Chan quietly stuck out her tongue, then opened the door, stepped aside and said with a smile, "Well, our Palm sect is inviting you in." Only then did Zhang Tianhe and Zhou Ping look inside. They saw many beautiful women standing in the room, all looking at Li Yundong like stars surrounding the moon. They carefully looked at him from head to toe and sighed, as if they wanted to see how this master who had passed the 9th level of Thunder Retribution was different from ordinary people. Zhou Qin and Lin Miao in particular, stared at Li Yundong with their eyes wide open. They felt that the man in front of them didn't look much different from before, but there was something different about him, which made them feel very strange. They were so careful and serious that they didn't even notice that someone had come outside. However, when Ziyuan saw them, she immediately bowed slightly and said, "It turns out that a fellow Taoist of the Jingyi school is here." Zhang Tianhe hurriedly bowed to Ziyuan and said, "Jinren Ziyuan, long time no see. It seems that your cultivation has advanced by leaps and bounds." At this time, Ziyuan had also successfully reached the realm of Thunder Retribution. Although she was not as abnormal and terrifying as Li Yundong, who had broken through the 9th level of Thunder Retribution in one go, she had successfully broken through to the 3rd level. At this time, Ziyuan's immortal qi was even stronger, and her beautiful and elegant face looked even more graceful and otherworldly. At first glance, Zhang Tianhe felt that she was like Chang'e under the moon who had left the secular world, or a fairy from the heavenly palace who had descended to the world. She was so beautiful that he didn't dare to take another look at her. Zhang Tianhe had always had a strong love for Ziyuan, but this kind of love was only out of an abnormal instinct. As the saying goes, everyone loves beauty. However, after a series of setbacks, his mentality had completely calmed down. He knew that although his identity was noble in terms of cultivation, he was really not as good as Li Yundong, let alone Ziyuan. Therefore he no longer had any improper thoughts about Ziyuan. At this time, his expression was polite, but there was no longer the strong affection in his eyes. What kind of person was Ziyuan? She could see the change in Zhang Tianhe at a glance. She also smiled slightly and said, "Jinren Zhang, congratulations on your improvement in cultivation. The Jingyi school has a successor." Zhang Tianhe said with a face full of shame, "I'm very ashamed. Compared to Jinren Ziyuan, Jinren Li is really not worth mentioning." At this time, Li Yundong also smiled slightly and said, "Jinren Zhang, you come from a famous sect and have a deep foundation. In the future you will definitely accumulate a lot and catch up. We are just a little ahead now. Besides, when it comes to cultivation, there is no distinction between who obtains the Tao and who learns it. If you are ahead for a while, you lack the Tao." Zhang Tianhe saw that at this time, Li Yundong already had the aura of a great master. He was calm and composed, like a deep pool and a towering mountain. Just by standing there without saying a word, he had an admirable aura. At this time when he spoke, it made people's hearts tremble. He couldn't help but have a good impression of him. In the past, Li Yundong had been reborn from the Jindan, so his qi and blood were much more vigorous than ordinary people. In addition, he didn't know how to restrain himself in the past and his realm was not high enough, so wherever he went he was like a huge yang magnetic field. Such a magnetic field was admittedly able to attract erotic women, but it was hard to avoid the same repulsion for similarly masculine men. Later, Li Yundong's cultivation increased and his realm improved. When he reached the realm of returning to nature, all his aura and dharma qi were restrained, and there was not a trace of it on the outside. When he stood in the crowd, no one could tell that he was any different from ordinary people. However, although this prevented many people from feeling disgusted when they saw him, it was also inevitable that he would lose the feeling of being a treasure and vanish in the mortal world. Now, although Li Yundong's aura was still very weak, he gave people a very comfortable feeling at this time. Whether it was different or similar at first sight, there was a sense of admiration and closeness. When Zhang Qianhe saw that Li Yundong's cultivation had reached such a high realm, he still spoke so modestly and politely. He admired him even more. He smiled and said, "Jinrenli, you're too polite. Please forgive me if I offended you in the past." Li Yundong remembered the unpleasant things that had happened between him and Zhang Qianhe. He chuckled and said, "As the saying goes, no discord, no concord. Let bygones be bygones." As they spoke, the two of them looked at each other and smiled. It was as if they had met to forget their enmity. Zhou Ping, who was standing to one side, saw that the two of them were becoming more and more polite. She couldn't help but feel a little worried. "The Shirdi is too much. Why are you so polite? How can I ask for forgiveness in the future?" At this time, Li Yundong had reached a state where his mind was clear and unhindered. He seemed to be able to feel Zhou Ping's thoughts. He turned his head and said to Zhou Ping with a smile, "Jinren Zhou, as the saying goes, one doesn't come to the temple for no reason. You didn't come here this time just to congratulate me for passing the 9 levels of Thunder Retribution, did you?" If it had been in the past, Zhou Ping might have glared at him and stepped forward to denounce him. But at this time, Li Yundong was so generous that even she didn't dare to be careless. She said timidly, "Master Li, we did come here for something." At this time, Zhang Qianhe, who was standing to one side, was afraid that she would speak too harshly, so he naturally took over the conversation. "Master Li Ao Wushuang, a disciple of your sect, has broken into the forbidden area of our Jingyi school, destroyed my magic formation and ruined my plan. She has now been detained by us. Now we want to ask you for an explanation." If Zhang Qianhe and the others had said such words as soon as they came up, the Jingyi school would have had one more terrifying enemy. However, when Zhang Qianhe said it again at this time, the originally sharp words sounded much more pleasing to the ear. The people of Fox Zen sect were shocked when they heard this. They all gathered around and said at once, "What? Little Shirshu Ao Wushuang broke into the forbidden area of Mount Longhu? What is she doing there? Magic formation? What magic formation?" They chattered for a while and the room suddenly became very lively. Su Chan was also so flustered that her pretty face turned pale. She wanted to ask more questions, but she held back and turned to look at Li Yundong. Li Yundong nodded slightly to her, indicating for her to rest assured. He was silent for a while, then turned to Zhang Qianhe and said, "Jinren Zhang, if I'm not mistaken, Ao Wushuang went to destroy the absolute love-extinguishing formation, right?" Seeing that Li Yundong didn't show any signs of turning hostile, Zhang Qianhe secretly breathed a sigh of relief. He said yes. Li Yundong frowned slightly. He immediately realized something and blurted out, "Wang Yuanshan has already left the mountain? Did he go to find the mystical silver fox? Chow, the mystical silver fox has already appeared in the world?" Zhang Qianhe looked at Li Yundong in surprise and said, "Jinren Li, this is already a well-known event in the cultivation world of Zhongri. Don't you know? Someone from the Japanese cultivation world came to you for help before." Li Yundong was stunned. Ziyuan, who was beside him, immediately frowned and glared at Ruan Hongling with sharp eyes. Ruan Hongling pouted and lowered her head aggrievedly. Although she was full of dissatisfaction and wanted to say something, she still endured it in front of outsiders. In the blink of an eye, Li Yundong understood Ruan Hongling's thoughts and said to Ziyuan, "Hongling is being kind. She doesn't want to disturb us. Don't blame her." As he said this, Li Yundong smiled and said to Zhang Qianhe, "Jinren Zhang, don't worry. I will definitely give you a good time, but please treat Senior Ao Wushuang well." Zhang Qianhe's heart skipped a beat and he asked tentatively, "Jinren Li, are you going to deal with the mystical silver fox?" Li Yundong smiled slightly and said, "Of course." Zhang Qianhe couldn't help but be a little excited. He couldn't wait to see the battle between Li Yundong and the mystical silver fox. He wanted to know what kind of realm Li Yundong had cultivated to and how powerful the mystical silver fox was. Even though Zhang Qianhe was relatively calm, he couldn't help urging at this time, "Jinren Li, let's not delay any longer. Shall we go now?" However, Li Yundong waved his hand and said with a smile, "There's no hurry. Let's talk about it later." Zhang Qianhe couldn't help but say anxiously, "How can I not be anxious? What's the matter that needs to wait for a while? Is it more important than the mystical silver fox?" Li Yundong smiled, looked up at the sky and said meaningfully, "If you want to do a good job, you must first sharpen your weapons. How can you do it without good weapons before the war? As usual, we will carry out the free of charge to the end. Please support us with practical actions. If there are any chapters that are out of order, urging for updates, or wrong chapters, please register as a member of this site and send us a text message. We will do our best to meet your needs. Send it 24 by 7 hours a day. As usual, we will carry out the free of charge to the end. Please support us with practical actions. If there are any chapters that are out of order, urging for updates, or wrong chapters, please register as a member of this site and send us a text message. We will do our best to meet your needs. Send it 24 by 7 hours a day. Chapter 859. After Li Yundong said this, he nodded slightly to Ziyuan, who was beside him. Bubble. Book. Ziyuan looked at him with some confusion. She didn't understand why Li Yundong was still thinking of, if you want to do a good job, you must first sharpen your tools at such a critical time. However, when she saw Li Yundong take out the glazed mirror and the purple gold luoyu plate, she immediately cried out. Her expression was absent-minded, and her eyes flickered. Ruan Hongling, who was standing to one side, looked even more excited and gave Zhou Ping a provocative look. In the past, she had suffered enough from Zhou Ping's sarcasm and supercilious eyes. Previously, at the inauguration ceremony, the Jingyi school had used these two damaged powerful magical weapons to criticize them, which had almost caused her and her Shiji to be severely punished. Now, if these two powerful magical weapons were repaired, they would see what else they would say. When Zhang Qinhe and Zhou Ping saw Li Yundong take out these two powerful magical weapons, they couldn't help but be stunned. Zhou Ping's eyes flickered. She remembered that Yu Tian had run to the Jingyi school to cry out his grievances and that Li Yundong could repair powerful magical weapons at this time. She suddenly looked like she wanted to say something, but she was deterred by Li Yundong's temperament and swallowed her words. Zhang Qinhe seemed to have not thought of the connection between these two things. He was pleasantly surprised and said, Zhenrenli can mend the sky? That's an eye-opener. Most cultivators knew how to use powerful magical weapons, but only a few people knew how to repair them. It could be said to be an extremely secretive divine skill in the cultivation world. In the past, the Penglai sect had been punished because of this divine skill. It could be said that an ordinary man was innocent, but he would get into trouble because of his wealth. Now that Li Yundong was using this divine skill in front of them, it was unknown whether he was secretly testing them or if he was fearless. Li Yundong looked at the two of them deeply, then smiled at Su Chan, Ziyuan, and the others, indicating that they didn't have to worry. Then he walked to the balcony and handed the purple gold luoyu plate to Ziyuan, who was beside him. He held the glazed mirror with both hands, went out of his body and flew toward the thunderclouds. The energy of Li Yundong's yang spirit at this time was beyond the imagination of ordinary people. As soon as he flew into the thunderclouds, it immediately caused the thunder to rumble again, and the thunderclouds churned violently. Li Yundong, who had gone through the 9 stages of thunder retribution, was no longer afraid of any heavenly thunder except the 9 heavenly night thunder. Seeing the dense heavenly thunder above his head coming toward him, he smiled slightly and held up the glass mirror, making it float in front of him. Almost there, his hands were tied inside his body, his index fingers were placed together, his wrists were 2 to 3 inches apart, and his thumbs were bent and crossed 3 times. In the midst of the thunderclouds he chanted the mantra, Pauamo Pasifu di Peisha Ziyi Yulu Bai Yi Bo Luo Po Luo Ta Bo Duo Yi Luo Ho Di Sanyasan Wu Tua Yi, Bo Yi Duo Paisha Er Yi Peisha Ziyi Sanimo Nu Bo Di Sa Fu Hi. This was the Medicine Buddha Foundation seal. The Medicine Buddha Foundation seal was one of the great gods and Buddhas in the world who could eliminate disasters, save the dying and heal the wounded and turn misfortune into blessing. He was also one of the gods and Buddhas with a very high status, only below Vairocana and Amitabha Buddha. In Li Yundong's handprint, the 4 fingers on the left were the 4 elements of all living beings, namely the 4 elements of earth, water, wind, and fire. The 4 fingers on the right were the 4 elements of the Buddha realm, namely color, law, body, and mind. Buddhism believed that all the diseases in the world originated from the disharmony of the 4 elements of the secular world, so the 4 elements of the Buddha realm were used to harmonize with the 4 elements of the world of all living beings. In the Mahamudra, the 2 thumbs were bent back and forth, summoning the 3 diseases of the 4 elements of the secular world, the Buddha realm and the Buddha realm into the medicine pot, becoming the 3 medicines of reason, wisdom, and religion. At the same time, the moon was bound in the hand, and the 2 thumbs were used to get rid of the 2 selves, so as to summon the meaning of the emptiness of man and law. After reading The Secret Method of Patching Heaven, Li Yundong realized that it was actually a wonderful technique of borrowing power from heaven and then using human power to repair powerful magical weapons. However, after learning it, Li Yundong found that the original secret method of patching heaven was relatively limited. It could either use the spirit treasures of heaven and earth, herbs and rare treasures to repair magic, or use the thunder method to repair magic. However, Li Yundong suddenly thought that since the Medicine Buddha Foundation could remove all the diseases in the world and repair the human body in Dharmakaya, why couldn't it be used to repair powerful magical weapons? Although Buddhism and Taoism were two different schools, in the final analysis they came from the same source. They were both seeking the true self and the true method. Their Taoists were different but their principles were the same, their skills were different but their methods were the same. Li Yundong held the Baisajayaguru Tathagata's fundamental seal. The heavenly thunder struck him, but it couldn't hurt his thunder tribulation yang spirit at all. Every bolt of heavenly thunder that struck his yang spirit was like a huge wave hitting a rock, shattering with a loud bang. After each heavenly thunder was broken, there would be waves of blue light drifting around. These blue lights were the glimmer of life in the heavenly thunder. After they drifted around, they were quickly attracted by Li Yundong's Baisajayaguru Tathagata's fundamental seal and quickly rushed toward Li Yundong's Mahamudra. It was almost there. Li Yundong's hands quickly turned blue. Blue was the color of the sea and at this time, it represented infinite vitality. He held the blue light in his hands and pressed it toward the sky-reaching glaze mirror in front of him. Suddenly, the blue light in the thunderclouds shone brightly, and the sky-reaching glaze mirror trembled violently. This burst of blue light wrapped around the broken powerful magical weapon like flowing water, moistening the dry and cracked earth like a spring rain. At this time, Li Yundong took a closer look and saw that as the blue light flowed, the cracks all over the sky-reaching glaze mirror were slowly infiltrated by the blue light and disappeared little by little. When the blue light completely disappeared, the sky-reaching glaze mirror emitted a faint blue fluorescent light. There was no longer any crack and it was as good as before. He felt relieved and knew that his attempt had succeeded. Then he took the sky-reaching glaze mirror home. As soon as Li Yundong appeared, he saw Su Chan, Ziyuan, Zhou Qin, and the others surrounding him nervously. They looked at the sky-reaching glaze mirror in his hand. Li Yundong smiled at Ziyuan and said, "Fortunately, I didn't disappoint you." Ziyuan saw the fluorescent light flowing on the sky-reaching glaze mirror. The spiritual energy contained in it seemed to be far stronger than before. The powerful magical weapon of her sect had not been destroyed in her hands. For a moment, she was so excited that she brushed the mirror with her hand and remained silent. She didn't even notice that Li Yundong was talking to her. After a long time, she raised her head, tears in her eyes. She stared at Li Yundong blankly, unable to speak for a while. Li Yundong chuckled at her and said, "You don't have to thank me. Just give me the purple gold luo jade plate. If it hadn't been for this powerful magical weapon, I would have died under the divine tribulation." Ziyuan quickly turned her body sideways and wiped the corner of her eye with the back of her hand. When she turned around again, she was already smiling and calm. She smiled and handed over the purple gold jade plate. Li Yundong did the same thing and repaired the magical weapon to its original state. Zhang Tianhe, who was watching from the side, secretly sighed and exclaimed that it was amazing. Zhou Ping, on the other hand, was both respectful and fearful. She thought to herself, Li Yundong has helped Ziyuan repair these two powerful magical weapons of the sect. I'm afraid that he won't be able to do anything to her at the next inauguration ceremony. Zhou Ping didn't realize that because she had also observed that Zhang Tianhe's love for Ziyuan had weakened, her hostility towards Ziyuan had also decreased a lot. If it had been in normal times, she might have cursed Ziyuan in her heart. After Li Yundong had repaired the sky-reaching glaze mirror and the purple gold jade plate, he turned to Su Chan and said, "Chaner, wait for me at home. I'll go and meet the mystical silver fox. I'll be back soon." Su Chan suddenly became very nervous. She quickly shook her head and said, "No, I have to go with you." Li Yundong knew that although the little girl's cultivation had increased greatly, he still refused to let her go with him. He shook his head and said, "No, the identity of the mystical silver fox is sensitive. You are a member of the Fox Zen School and my girlfriend. Ao Wushuang is also your master. You should avoid arousing suspicion." Su Chan said angrily, "What's the reason?" "That's why I have to go. If I don't go, wouldn't it be even more obvious?" At this time, Zhou Qi knew that if Li Yundong didn't let Su Chan go, she would have no hope. She had cultivated so hard just to hide aside when there was trouble and danger. An ordinary woman might like to watch her beloved man fight for her, but Zhou Qin was not such a woman. She was strong and competitive. She liked to fight on the front line with her beloved man. When necessary, she would use her body to cover him and die for him. In this way he would remember her for the rest of his life. Seeing that Li Yundong didn't even let Su Chan go, Zhou Qin immediately tried to persuade him. Su Chan is right. Master, you should let her go. Li Yundong turned his face and said with a faint smile, I should let you go, right? Zhou Qin's careful thoughts were exposed, but she didn't blush at all. She said righteously, if the master is in trouble, the disciple should bear the burden. Isn't this what I should do? Master, I know you are worried about my safety, but is it really safe to hide behind you for the rest of my life? Or do you think I'm still a burden now? These words were a little serious. Li Yundong knew that if he didn't let Zhou Qin go, she might blame him for the rest of her life in the future. Moreover, her Taoist heart would also be damaged because of this matter. Li Yundong sighed helplessly and nodded gently to Zhou Qin, but then he added, Don't do stupid things, do you hear me? Zhou Qin saw that Li Yundong was staring at her as if he could see through her heart. Her heart trembled and she nodded heavily. At this time Lin Miao, who had blonde hair and blue eyes, looked at Li Yundong and opened her mouth as if she wanted to go with him. However, Li Yundong said to her without hesitation, Lin Miao, don't say it. You haven't even passed the Zhuji phase. If you go, you will die. Not only will you not be able to help, but you will also be a burden. Su Chan, Zhou Qin and Ziyuan can go, but you can't go. The big and small foxes of the Fox Zen school all looked at Li Yundong eagerly, as if waiting for him to take them to Japan to broaden their horizons and see what the strongest fox spirit of all time looked like. But hearing Li Yundong's words, they all hung their heads dejectedly. Chao Yi and Lu Yuehong looked at each other, then quickly comforted the disappointed little foxes. After Li Yundong had discussed everything, he, Su Chan, Ziyuan, and Zhou Qin all took their powerful magical weapons and prepared to go to Su Yi. At this time Zhang Tianhe, who was standing to one side, said, Junrenli, if you don't mind, I will follow your lead and go with you. Although my cultivation is not very good, I can wave the flag and shout for support. Li Yundong quickly tried to persuade him. Junren Zhang, you are the future leader of the Jingyi school. How can you take the risk yourself? Zhang Tianhe smiled and said, if even you lose, it is very likely that there will be no Jingyi school in the future. When the nest is overturned, how can there be an intact egg? I believe that you know this truth, Junrenli. Li Yundong thought for a moment, nodded, and no longer stopped Zhang Tianhe. He looked in the direction of Su Yi and sighed slightly. I don't know what's going on there now. If we go now, is it too late? Chapter 860. Just before Zhang Tianhe and Zhou Ping went to Tianan City, in the distant Nasui, there was a thunderstorm. You're almost there. When cultivators transcended the thunder tribulation, although the power of the ninth heaven divine thunder was just as great, the heavenly thunder was full of vitality. Although it was awe-inspiring and frightening, it was not enough to make people think of life and death. However, when the ninth heaven divine night thunder fell, everyone felt as if they were in the wilderness of hell in an instant. The air around them became scorching hot, without a trace of vitality, which made people desperate. The light, which was like the polar day, was so dazzling that many cultivators with lower cultivation even covered their eyes and wailed in pain. Some cultivators with profound cultivation avoided the extreme light at the first time. Then they opened their eyes, turned their heads, and boldly looked at the field. At this time, the heavenly thunder gradually disappeared. It turned out that the place where the mystical silver fox and Wang Yuanshan were located was empty. The ground under their feet had been struck by the heavenly thunder, and there was a huge round pit. There was smoke in it, and black stones and scorched earth were everywhere. There was no vitality at all. It seemed that both of them had been turned into powder by the heavenly thunder together. Could it be that the mystical silver fox is really dead this time? Almost everyone in the cultivation world of China who saw the situation on the field couldn't help but have a thought in their minds. Because of Zhou Chang's previous example, no one dared to be careless. Otherwise, before they had time to be happy for a long time, they would be caught off guard by the mystical silver fox. That would be too much joy before sorrow came to them. For a while, the cultivators on both sides of the mountain range began to search around nervously. The cultivators of the Chinese cultivation world released their powerful magical weapons, while the cultivators of the Japanese cultivation world took out their ghosts and spirits, looking for the aura of the mystical silver fox from afar. After searching for a long time, they finally confirmed that there was no trace of the mystical silver fox. No one knew who was the first to cheer in the Japanese cultivation sections. Then there was an earth-shaking cheer on the top of the mountain like a tsunami. Si Xingguang, such a cynical man, couldn't help but put his palms together, close his eyes and say to the sky with a sigh, "Amaterasu God, thank you. Fortunately, our Japanese cultivation world shouldn't have suffered this calamity." Although Ise Izumo had been injured by the mystical silver fox before, she had a deep foundation, and her injury was not very serious. She also breathed a sigh of relief, and a faint smile appeared on her usually unsmiling face. She said with fear, "What a terrible opponent." Fortunately, it was a little late. Although the Chinese cultivation world on the opposite side saw that the mystical silver fox had disappeared without a trace, they could not be happy in any case. In this battle, although many people in the Japanese cultivation world had died, there were 200 million believers in Japan. Such a huge foundation was enough to support them to recover their vitality in a very short time. But what kind of people had died in the Chinese cultivation world? Zhou Chang was a veteran of the Chuanjin Dragon sect, one of the top sects in the Chinese cultivation world. He was a rare lightning tribulation expert in the world. Wang Yuanshan, the #1 expert of the Chinese cultivation world, represented the pinnacle of individual cultivation in the Chinese cultivation world. Both of those rare experts had perished in battle. For the Chinese cultivation world, which was already in the degenerate age, it was like adding hail to snow. Although there were different sects in the past, many cultivators still held a glimmer of hope in their hearts. They hoped that Wang Yuanshan was not dead, especially Ding Nan. She didn't want Zhou Chang to die because of her, and then Wang Yuanshan to die in battle. It could be said that the collapse of the two highest peaks in the Chinese cultivation world had something to do with her. If someone talked about this matter in the future, it would be unimaginable. But no matter how hard Ding Nan and the cultivators of various sects searched, they could not find any trace of Wang Yuanshan, as if he had never appeared in this place. Ding Nan searched for a long time and finally gave up. She landed on the top of the mountain. Her expression changed and her eyes flickered. No one knew what she was thinking. The cultivators of all sects in China still subconsciously isolated her. Among them, Mao Yichang, who had been sent flying by the mystical silver fox, also came to her senses at this time. Although she had a lot of thoughts about Ding Nan, it was not convenient for her to cause trouble at this time. At this time she was extremely vile. Thinking of her performance in front of everyone before, she was both angry and upset. Especially at this time when she heard a burst of laughter coming from the opposite mountain, she was so angry that she gritted her teeth and couldn't help cursing, "These little devils are so heartless. Even Senior Zhou and Wang Dejinren are dead. How can they still laugh?" As soon as she said this, some cultivators echoed with righteous indignation, "That's right. These little devils are evil. They just killed the mystical silver fox and forgot about us." For a moment, the crowd on the top of the mountain was boiling with emotions. Du Fei, who was standing to one side, saw that something was wrong. Although he didn't like these Japanese people very much, he was experienced and prudent after all. He knew that he couldn't come at this time. Although the Japanese cultivation world had suffered heavy casualties, it would be a big mistake if he thought that these people could take advantage of the situation and kill them all. The reason why the Japanese cultivation world used to be like a soft persimmon in front of the mystical silver fox was that she could pinch them however she wanted. It was not because they were weak, but because the mystical silver fox was always stronger than all of them. This distance was a natural chasm for cultivators, and they could never cross it. If it weren't for Zhou Chang and his immortal trapping sword on their side, or if it weren't for Wang Yuanshan, if they fought against the mystical silver fox, their fate would be worse than that of the Japanese cultivation world. Du Fei was well aware of this. He was afraid that these people would get hot-headed and rush over recklessly. That would be a great trouble. Although the Japanese had forgotten to come and thank them for their help after the battle, they still owed them a favor. As the saying goes, the cultivation world of China and Japan is separated by a strip of water. Mountains don't move, water doesn't move, people don't move. One day they will meet again. Maybe this favor will come in handy when the time comes. In this world it was easy to pay off a debt of money but difficult to pay off a debt of love. This great favor of coming from thousands of miles away to help would probably be a headache for the Japanese cultivation world in the future. But if they were impulsive at this time, not only would this great favor be lost, but the other party might even bite back and take advantage of the situation. That would be a great disaster. Du Fei hastily advised from the side, "Fellow Taoists, listen to me. It's really not the time to care about this. After all, the Japanese have also suffered heavy casualties. At this time the enemy has died, which is understandable. At present we are still in their territory, and Senior Zhou and Jinren Wang have passed away. Everyone don't be impulsive. As the saying goes, impulsiveness is the devil. Du Fei's words were like a basin of cold water poured over their heads. Everyone thought about it and was extremely depressed. If Senior Zhou and Jinren Wang were still here, they would immediately fight with these little Japanese and kill them. Let's see if they dare to burn the bridge after crossing the river. The cultivators of all sects in the Chinese cultivation world all felt that the Chinese cultivation world had suffered a great loss this time. They felt extremely uncomfortable, so they didn't like the Japanese people on the opposite side. Especially when they heard the laughter on the opposite side of the mountain, it was even more ear-piercing. However, there was not only laughter in the Japanese cultivation world. Because the three giants of the Japanese Buddhist world had been forming the magic formation, it could be said that they had relied on the power of the magic formation to resist the attacks of most of the mystical silver foxes. Therefore, the Pure Land True sect, the Tiantai sect, and the Xinyan Tantrism had suffered extremely serious losses. After the battle, the monks looked around and saw that many of their friends were already covered in blood and lying on the ground, never to wake up again. Even though they were monks who could see through the secular world and everything was empty, they couldn't help but feel sad. Many of them burst into tears. The great monk of the Xinyan Tantrism, Kaisai Hikaryuni, also had a face full of emotion. His eyes were filled with the palpitations of surviving a disaster. He put his palms together and said in a deep voice, Amitabha. Everyone, they just went to the Western paradise under the guidance of the Buddha. The dead have passed away. This is a good thing. It is a release from the secular world. We should recite the Reincarnation Sutra for them and celebrate them. At this time, the monks around, regardless of their sects, all put their palms together and praised in unison, the great monk is right. They went to the Western paradise under the guidance of the Buddha. We should be happy. After that, everyone began to recite the reincarnation mantra loudly. Although it was the monks of the Pure Land True sect who recited the reincarnation mantra the most, it was not only the monks of the Pure Land True sect who recited the reincarnation mantra. The monks of the Tiantai sect and the Xinyan Tantrism were also familiar with the reincarnation mantra. At once, they recited the reincarnation mantra together, Namo Amitabha Night, Doda Gada Night, Doda Yesha, Amitabha Doda Papai. For a time, there was a burst of chanting on the top of the mountain, and the Dharma was solemn. But as soon as they finished reciting the sutra, they heard a buzzing voice suddenly coming from the sky. The voice belonged to a woman, cold and ferocious. They have indeed gone to the Western paradise. Stop reciting the sutra and go to the Western paradise with them. The sentence was really terrible to the extreme. In an instant, the whole world seemed to be quiet. On the mountains on both sides of the cultivation world in the middle sun, the noise, laughter, crying, and chanting disappeared in an instant. Everyone seemed to have become mute in an instant. The air between heaven and earth seemed to have been suddenly sucked dry, and there was no sound around. Dead silence, a bone-chilling dead silence. Mystical silver fox. She was not dead. Why did the mystical silver fox not die under such an amazing power of the nine heavens god Night Thunder? No one was in the mood to investigate this question. The cultivators of the two countries, who had been secretly estranged from each other before, forgot all the unhappiness in an instant. They all looked at the sky in fear and despair, as if they had seen their own death and the end of the world. Amaterasu God. May your glory, give me blessings and strength to face the coming death and fear. Even as Xinguang, a strong-willed great cultivator, closed his eyes in despair at this time, and had no intention of resisting at all. At this time many of the cultivators who had been laughing broke down in an instant, crying and shouting in fear. At this time the faces of the monks of various Buddhist sects were full of despair. A solemn and stirring atmosphere enveloped the top of Suyez mountain. The atmosphere was so oppressive that it was suffocating. There were even some cultivators with poor willpower who, in this extreme fear, shouted and slapped their own foreheads with a backhand, smashing their own bodies and yang spirits into pieces. Those cultivators who were not crazy looked at the sky in fear, and their hearts were filled with despair. The mystical silver fox didn't die. Is she really invincible? Who else in the world can deal with her? Is the end of the world really coming? Chapter 861. When the ninth heaven divine Night Thunder fell, even the mystical silver fox thought that she was going to die. But soon she found that the moment the heavenly thunder fell, it slowed down and there was a gap in it. The mystical silver fox had been fighting and fighting all her life. She had fought countless times and had rich experience. She had been able to escape from countless pursuits and encirclement. She had relied on her ability to capture the secrets of heaven that ordinary people could not. At this moment she immediately broke free from Wang Yuanshan's restraint. Her 7 fox tails gathered above her head and around her, tightly surrounding herself. Almost there. Because the magic circle of the Jingyi school was accidentally destroyed by Li Sun, the energy accumulated by the magic circle did not reach its peak at the last moment, and the power of the 9th heaven divine night thunder did not reach its maximum. It could not even be called the 9th heaven divine night thunder. There were many thunder methods in the world, but only the 9th heaven divine night thunder could kill the mystical silver fox. As soon as the power of the thunder method was weakened, it was immediately absorbed by the 7 indestructible fox tails of the mystical silver fox and weakened its power. When it was passed to the mystical silver fox, its power was not even enough to kill her. However, although the power of the heavenly thunder was reduced, it was still the power of heaven after all. The mystical silver fox was seriously injured after taking the blow. She immediately hid under the ground and secretly adjusted her breath. The cultivators of the 2 sects of China and Japan had searched almost all the places within a radius of more than 10 miles from Suyi, but no one had thought of going deep underground to look for the trace of the mystical silver fox. In the past, the mystical silver fox had read the classics of Buddhism and Taoism and had seen a lot. Naturally, she knew that the 9th heaven divine night thunder could not be activated by 1 or 2 cultivators with their own spiritual energy cultivation. It must be a terrifying thunder that could only be driven by a large magic circle. Obviously, Suyi did not have such a magic circle. Otherwise, she could feel the huge spiritual qi and spiritual energy of the magic circle at the first time, and she would definitely destroy the magic circle at the first time. In the magic circle that the mystical silver fox knew, the 9th heaven divine night thunder in front of her was obviously used as bait by Wang Yuanshan, and then moved through the absolute love extinguishing formation. However, no matter how smart the mystical silver fox was, she could never imagine why this fatal blow did not kill her. Moreover, the power of the heavenly thunder had decreased sharply at the last moment, which allowed her to escape. The mystical silver fox survived a great disaster. She was extremely shocked and also a little frightened. At this time, it was the most vulnerable time for the mystical silver fox. She withstood the heavenly thunder, and her qi and blood were fluctuating. She could hardly mobilize her jinqi. However, after she took a breather under the 9th earth for a while, she was able to move her jinqi. However, she seemed to be a little vigilant. The mystical silver fox had a lingering fear in her heart for Wang Yuanshan's absolute determination and fatal blow. Heaven Lightning Fox's Dragon Wang. Star to Silver. After the Divine Night God she fell and the God Silver Foxes she fell. After Heaven Divine Silver Dragon she fell, God Silver Fox's mountain was. After confirming that there were no other magic circles and that the 9 Heaven Divine Night Thunder would not fall again, the mystical silver fox showed her true body again. This time, when she showed her true body, she immediately defeated the resistance of the cultivators of China and Japan. After losing Zhou Chang and Wang Yuanshan, they all knew that there was no one in front of them who could resist the angry revenge of the mystical silver fox. When Ise Xingguang heard the voice of the mystical silver fox, he couldn't help but pray to Amaterasu in despair. Then he knew that he would die. He let out a long sigh and said in a low voice, "If there is no disease for 7 years, there is no need to suffer for 3 years. If the cloud has no heart, it will be a poem. If the poem has no heart, it will not be bitter. When you are sleepy, you sleep during the day. When you wake up at night. If you don't have the desire to climb the 9 lotus platform, you won't have the sin of falling into 80,000 hell. If you live to the fullest, death is just a retirement." This was the masterpiece Ku Temple, handed down from generation to generation by Maeda Keiji, the most legendary general in the world during the Warring States period in Japan. Although the words were not gorgeous and the antithesis was questionable, the artistic conception in the poem was commendable. The reason why Ise Xingguang had a one-man style was that he was a die-hard fan of Maeda Keiji. During the Warring States period, Maeda Keiji was known as the first romantic in the Warring States period and the unparalleled kabuki. Although he was a famous general, his personal style had nothing to do with that of a famous general. Soon the Japanese were low-key and modest. They were cautious in their words and deeds. However, Maeda Keiji had learned from countless famous teachers. He boasted that he was good at dancing, music, tea ceremony, and all kinds of martial arts. The most glorious thing he had done in his life was to lead only 7 people to fight. In the middle of the night, he killed his way into the main formation of the first general, Mogami Yoshimitsu, and almost killed himself. Then he retreated overnight. After that battle, he immediately called himself the first famous general in the world and first gun in the world. Maeda Keiji would often be naked in the winter, and would wear cotton clothes in the summer. When the two armies were at war, he would sing and dance in front of the formation. He would even strip naked. Sometimes when he was excited, he would boast to anyone he met that his little brother was as thick as a child's arm, and how amazing his martial arts were. Such a character could be said to be an absolute anomaly among the Japanese. He was extremely accomplished in singing, dancing, and poetry. Even hundreds of years later in the modern society, there were still many people who deeply loved his poems and fantasies. The author of Fist of the North Star, Tetsuo Hara, used his deeds to create the famous manga Hwa no Keiji, which was widely read in Japan at that time. Therefore, when Ise Shingguang wrote this poem, almost all the Japanese here knew the origin of this poem. Usually when they read Maeda Keiji's poems and life stories, they did not feel particularly emotional. However, at that moment, with an invincible enemy in front of them and death at hand, all of them suddenly seemed to understand the artistic conception in Maeda Keiji's poem. For a moment, the surrounding Japanese cultivators felt the same way. Many of them cried in despair and began to recite, "If you live to the fullest, death is just a retirement." Many cultivators even took off their clothes like crazy and pointed their little brother at the sky. They stomped their feet and cursed as if they were tired of living. "Kill me if you have the guts, and I'll reincarnate as soon as possible." Although the cultivators of the Chinese sects on the other side were also terrified and desperate, they were stunned when they saw that the Japanese were singing and dancing. Some of them were even naked. They really couldn't figure out how this group of Japanese, who were usually cautious and even cautious with their words, could do such a crazy thing at this moment. When the mystical silver fox saw their ugly behavior in the sky, she sneered in her heart. Finally, she was sure that these guys had no heart to resist. At this time, her young spirit flashed and returned to her body, which was hidden under the ninth earth. When she appeared again, she was already in the air between the two mountains. Suddenly, the figure of the mystical silver fox appeared. The 7 dancing golden fox tails were really like the rolling flames of hell, which made people's hearts tremble with fear. Many Japanese cultivators who had been crazy before were stunned at this time. They were frightened by the momentum of the mystical silver fox, and they were all stunned on the spot. At this time, on the top of the mountain of the Chinese cultivation sects, the cultivators of all sects were beating the drums of retreat without exception. They were just here to help out and participate in the battle. There was no need for them to die here with the Japanese. Du Fei of the Chuanjin Dragon sect said in a deep voice, "Everyone, we can't all die here. Let's all scatter and escape. No matter how powerful the mystical silver fox is, she can't leave us all here." Hearing this, everyone said, "Yes, we don't have to stay here and die with these Japanese." While they were talking, they suddenly heard the mystical silver fox shout, "You still want to escape? All of you go to hell." Everyone was shocked. They looked up at the mystical silver fox, only to see her 7 fox tails sweeping towards them in an instant. At this moment, the cultivators of all sects in the Chinese cultivation world on the top of the mountain were shocked and jumped up one after another. The 7 tails of the mystical silver fox suddenly spread out like a peacock's tail, spreading in all directions like a waterfall. Countless thin fox silk like a spider web quickly chased after them. Many cultivators who escaped slowly were immediately caught up by the fox silk and were instantly twisted into countless pieces. Ding Nan and Mao Yichang's cultivation was relatively high, and their reactions were also extremely fast. As soon as the mystical silver fox moved, they immediately escaped far away. But although their cultivation was high and their speed was fast, how could they be faster than the mystical silver fox? The two of them saw that the golden fox silk under their feet was like a maggot attached to a bone, following them like a shadow. Seeing that it was about to catch up with them, they felt a chill in their hearts and thought to themselves, "It seems that we can't escape this calamity today." The two of them looked at each other from afar. Just as they were about to close their eyes and wait for death, they suddenly heard a voice coming from the clouds. The voice was solemn, full of majesty and power. "Nan. Zamanduo Jaluoji." For a moment, the two of them didn't understand what the voice was saying. They only saw a big golden handprint flying out of the thundercloud and blasting towards the mystical silver fox. The two of them didn't understand, but the cultivators of various sects of Buddhism felt as if a bolt of lightning had flashed in their minds. When the monks on the 2 mountains saw the Mahamudra, they put their palms together modestly. The 2 middle fingers were erected like a block, the left index finger was upright and shaking, and the right index finger was open, showing the shape of a lion. This was the lion speed seal, one of the 14 fundamental seals of the immovable wisdom king, which symbolized the brave and fierce Bodhi heart. At this time, these monks who had been in despair suddenly became spirited regardless of their countries, sects, and sections. They said loudly in unison, "Those who see me will obtain the Bodhi heart. Those who hear my name will stop cultivating good. Those who hear my words will obtain great wisdom. Those who know my heart will become a Buddha." At this time, the cultivators of the Taoists and the Shinto sect also came to their senses. Although they did not cultivate Buddhism, they all knew that this sentence was the famous oath of the immovable wisdom king. Living in the fire gives birth to samadhi, burning the internal and external obstacles, and destroying all the enemies of the devil army. The cultivators of various sects who had been rescued from death suddenly widened their eyes and looked at the clouds. They saw a young man sitting cross-legged in the rolling thundercloud high in the sky, motionless. It was the reincarnated wisdom king, Li Yundong. Chapter 862. Li Yundong's speed was extremely fast. Before his body arrived, the yang spirit had already arrived in an instant. As soon as he arrived, he saw the mystical silver fox start a massacre and chase after the cultivation world of the middle sun indiscriminately. Almost there and without thinking, he immediately sent out a giant palm print. For the cultivators of Buddhism in China, this Mahamudra made them feel refreshed as if they had come back to life. The mystical silver fox was even more shocked. No one was more familiar with this Mahamudra than she was. In the past, when she and the immovable wisdom king fought fiercely, this Mahamudra Kung Fu had left a very deep impression on her. The mystical silver fox's fox tail, which had been chasing after everyone, immediately retracted and curled up into a ball-shaped barrier to protect herself. With a bang, the big handprint forcibly slapped her in the air and sent her flying more than 10 meters away. This time, the mystical silver fox could completely conclude that this must be the reincarnation of Wisdom King. There wouldn't be a second person in the world who could send him flying so far just by relying on the giant palm print. The two blood-red eyes of the mystical silver fox seemed to burn with a blazing flame. It was so angry that it almost turned into two burning fireballs. When enemies meet, their eyes turn red. "Reincarnated Wisdom King, do you dare to show yourself?" After the mystical silver fox stopped, its golden fox tail curled up. Half of it protected its body, and the other half jumped up and down, staring at the clouds covetously. At this time, Li Yundong had not yet reached Su Yi. Even though he had broken through the ninth thunder retribution, he still did not dare to be careless, because the opponent in front of him was the strongest cultivator in the Chinese cultivation world in 1,000 years. The cultivation world of China and Japan had joined hands to encircle her twice, but they had failed. Now, the cultivation world of the two countries had joined hands for the first time, but they had still been defeated by her. Li Jiandong knew that no matter from which point of view, he could not lose. If he lost, the Chinese cultivation world would fall to the bottom, and Su Chan, Ziyuan, and Zhou Qin would definitely suffer a misfortune. Chao Kefi's divine sense and memory would also be completely absorbed by the mystical silver fox. Therefore Li Yundong was particularly cautious. He hid his yang spirit body in the thunderclouds, only showing his figure faintly in the thunderclouds. He moved his position from time to time so as to avoid any danger. Almost there, as the saying goes, what is false is true and what is true is false. That unknown soldier Wang Yuanshan, who had appeared before, had given the mystical silver fox a huge surprise. A guy whom she had never heard of had almost died with her, which made the mystical silver fox particularly cautious. This guy called Wang Yuanshan almost caused him to fail miserably. How could this reincarnated Wisdom King, who had 1,000 years of enmity with him, be easy to provoke? Li Yundong did not dare to be careless, nor did the mystical silver fox. She stared at the sky and her whole body began to bulge. She released it from afar like a radar, constantly searching for Li Yundong's figure and aura. Once she locked Li Yundong's position, she would immediately launch a tentative attack. She wanted to see how powerful the Wisdom King of this life was after 1,000 years. The mystical silver fox and Li Yundong, who had been enemies for 1,000 years, looked at each other nervously and vigilantly. No one dared to make a move rashly. At this time, on the top of the mountain where the Japanese cultivation world was located, the cultivators of all sects widened their eyes and looked at the clouds in the sky. Wang Yuanshan had shown them the demeanor of a great cultivator who was old and immortal. At this time Li Yundong was too young. Even though they were far away, their sharp eyes could see Li Yundong's young face flashing in the clouds from time to time. But this time no one dared to look down on him. This young man who sat high in the clouds, once defeated Masako Tachibana in Mount Koya, and the other time he defeated several masters in the Japanese cultivation world in a row in Mount Longhu. These two deeds of severely injuring the Japanese cultivation world made the Japanese cultivation world completely recognize his identity as the reincarnated Wisdom King. Many Japanese cultivators thought, only the reincarnated Wisdom King can be so strong. There is nothing to be ashamed of being defeated by such a strong man. Therefore, as soon as Li Yundong appeared, many cultivators of all sects shouted excitedly. Some of the more experienced and prudent ones couldn't help sighing involuntarily. Ah, is this the reincarnated Wisdom King? He's really majestic. As the saying goes, a person's reputation is like the shadow of a tree. Li Yundong's reputation was built up from fierce battles. Although there were many thrilling and fierce battles, he had never been defeated so far. He could be called an invincible golden body. In the Chinese cultivation world, people gave him the nickname Invincible Li. In the Japanese cultivation world, people gave him the elegant name Fighting Lord. The reason why Li Yundong was able to get such a title was that most of the masters he had defeated had been famous for a long time. They were by no means ordinary people. Because of this, although Li Yundong was young as soon as he appeared, he immediately shocked everyone. Some older Japanese cultivators even called him Lord and didn't dare to call him by his name. This was the logic of the Japanese. As long as one side was strong enough for them to look up to, they would be the most respectful group of people in the world. Se Xingguang hadn't expected that Li Yundong would arrive at this time. Even though he thought that he was indifferent to everything and had seen through death, he couldn't help but be a little excited at this time. He said to Se Chuyun, "The immovable Wisdom King is here. We are saved." Se Izumo looked at the clouds in a daze. She said slowly, "Heavenly Lord Battler has become stronger again. It's really awe-inspiring." Se Chuyun knew very well that the last time she had fought with Li Yundong, he had been seriously injured. If Li Yundong had been fully injured and they had fought, she was afraid that she would have lost even more miserably. Now, Li Yundong actually dared to sit at the top of the thunderclouds and ignore the heavenly thunder. Such boldness and demeanor were really awe-inspiring. Se Xingguang said with emotion, "Chuyun, this battle in front of us is the Battle of Tianwang Mountain in the cultivation world. It's rare to see one in 900 years. No matter whether we win or lose, we are lucky enough to witness and participate in this battle. We will have no regrets in this life." These words made the surrounding cultivators of various Japanese sects nod in agreement. For a moment, everyone seemed to have forgotten the fear of death and looked at the field with great excitement and eagerness. The Japanese cultivation world was like this, not to mention the Chinese cultivation world. At this moment, for thousands of years, no one had been able to get such awe and expectation from the Chinese cultivation world and the Japanese cultivation world at the same time. The cultivators of the two countries held their breaths and looked at the two of them with rapt attention, not daring to breathe. Although they saw that the mystical silver fox and Li Yundong were looking at each other from afar in the sky and on the ground, and the world was so quiet that there was only the rustling of wind and rain and rolling thunder, they knew that once the two of them fought, it would be an earth-shattering battle. The mystical silver fox searched for a while, but it was still unable to lock onto Li Yundong's aura and location. He seemed to have merged with the thunderclouds. She couldn't find his aura anywhere, but he seemed to be everywhere. The thunderclouds were rolling and the lightning was flashing. His looming figure was everywhere. The mystical silver fox felt a chill in her heart and said coldly, "Wisdom King, don't play such a trick to deceive little children. Don't you think it's shameful?" The mystical silver fox couldn't lock onto Li Yundong's aura, and with the previous example of Wang Yuanshan, the mystical silver fox didn't dare to rush into the clouds to fight with Li Yundong, so she tried to use the method of arousing the reincarnated Wisdom King from the clouds. This was exactly what Li Yundong wanted. He said lightly, "Mystical silver fox, if you think I'm playing a little child's trick, why don't you come up? Let's compete in the thunderclouds. No matter who wins or loses, it will be enough to be a good story in the future. What do you think?" Li Yundong's fearless words made the mystical silver fox more vigilant. The fox was born to be suspicious. At this time, Li Yundong's false behavior made her even more uncertain about Li Yundong's background. The mystical silver fox narrowed her eyes slightly. Although she was more and more vigilant, she was unwilling to fight with Li Yundong like this. Although she was afraid of the reincarnated Wisdom King, she also had a great psychological advantage. She had defeated him 1,000 years ago. Could it be that she couldn't do it 1,000 years later? With a thought, the mystical silver fox secretly mobilized the Jinqi in her body, making her essence, blood, and qi boil to a peak state. However, others could not see it from the outside at all. They saw that she was motionless, as quiet as a virgin. No one could tell from her slim and elegant posture that there was a power that could destroy the heavens and the earth in her. Others couldn't notice that the mystical silver fox was accumulating strength, but Li Yundong could feel that a terrible danger was pouncing on him. He was shocked and immediately made a prompt decision. He shouted loudly, "Mystical silver fox, if you don't dare to come up, forget it. I'll go down to find you." After that, he crossed his hands and flipped his 10 fingers like a blooming lotus flower. He quickly pinched one of the 14 seals of the immovable Wisdom King, the Treasure Mountain seal, which symbolized firm and vigorous power, and blasted it toward the mystical silver fox. The mystical silver fox didn't expect that Li Yundong would dare to take the initiative to attack her at this critical moment. It was as if the Buddha had come in person, looking down at her and seeing through everything about her. Her heart was even more shocked, and she subconsciously took a defensive position. She wrapped herself tightly with her 7 golden fox tails, leaving only a very small gap, so that she could observe the reincarnated Wisdom King in the clouds. Li Jiandong knew that he had to buy as much time as possible for the arrival of Ziyuan, Su Chan, Zhou Qin, and the others. The flying body was not as good as the Yang spirit, so it was impossible for it to arrive in an instant. Even if his body could arrive at an amazing speed with the help of Su Chan and the others, it would still take a long time. If he could not hold the mystical silver fox tightly, she would be hesitant and surprised. Once the mystical silver fox saw through his empty city strategy, it would be a little bad. At this time, Li Yundong knew that he was weak, but he knew that the mystical silver fox didn't know his situation. Therefore, the weaker he was, the more he had to take the initiative to attack and put on a fearless look. He repeatedly blasted the Mahamudra at the mystical silver fox. Every move was powerful and heavy, causing the world to tremble slightly. In the scenic area of Su Ye's killing stone, bursts of golden light could be seen from afar. It was a spectacular sight. The cultivation world in the Middle Day saw that every move of Li Yundong seemed to have the power of a dragon and a tiger. Its power was so great that it was enough to shake the mountains and move the earth. It was already a great thing for others to make one move, but Li Yundong made so many Mahamudra without any effort, and the power of each move was constantly increasing. This was really amazing. For others, this Mahamudra was an extremely terrifying killing move, but for the mystical silver fox, it was just an ordinary trick. Her 7 fox tails were bright and soft. No matter how powerful the force was, it would be naturally offset by a lot of force. In addition, with the natural defensive power of the fox demon's real body, the mystical silver fox seemed to be able to deal with the explosive Mahamudra with ease. The mystical silver fox had been quietly observing Li Yundong in the clouds, as if she wanted to wait for his spiritual power to be consumed for a while before making a move. The people on both sides of the mountain saw that the mystical silver fox was being bombarded by Li Yundong's Mahamudra, but she seemed to have no power to fight back. Many people cheered excitedly. However, as the time of the Mahamudra's bombardment increased, the mystical silver fox still didn't move at all. She was like a rock in the stormy waves. This kind of silence doubled her majesty and strength, as if she had turned into a dormant volcano at this time, accumulating power. Once she exploded, she would destroy everything. At this moment, the world was filled with the rumbling sound of the Mahamudra bombardment, but there was a strange chill in everyone's heart. Gradually, the cheers on the top of the mountain disappeared. Everyone looked at the silent, mystical silver fox in horror, waiting for her to explode. Chapter 863. The forbearance of the mystical silver fox was beyond everyone's expectation. Almost everyone thought that the mystical silver fox would make an earth-shattering counterattack in the next second, but in fact, the mystical silver fox was still as steady as Mount Tai and as quiet as an ancient pool. Except for her 7 golden fox tails that were resisting the Mahamudra, which were constantly twisting under the bombardment, the other parts of the mystical silver fox did not move at all. Her feet did not move an inch and she did not move an inch. You're almost there. The mystical silver fox had endured for 900 years. Naturally, it was impossible for her to endure for a while. However, she did not expect that it was her extraordinary cautiousness that made her miss the best opportunity to defeat the reincarnated Wisdom King. The crowd didn't know how long it had been. The rumbling sound seemed to last for a century. When everyone's eardrums were numb and their feet were numb, the mystical silver fox finally couldn't help it. It was not because the mystical silver fox found that Li Jiandong's aura had weakened, but because she was extremely shocked to find that after so long, the Mahamudra of the reincarnated Wisdom King was getting more powerful and more imposing. It seemed that the spiritual energy and jinchi of the Wisdom King were like a surging river, like a vast sea, endless and never drying up. How is this possible? The mystical silver fox couldn't help but be shocked. She thought to herself, unless the reincarnated Wisdom King has already stolen the secrets of heaven, and there is endless yin and yang qi in his body to support him, so he can carry out such a high-intensity continuous attack. If that's the case, then I don't know when I will be able to continue to be beaten like this. If the reincarnated Wisdom King has enough momentum, the consequences will be unimaginable. The mystical silver fox thought about it and secretly made up her mind. She decided that she couldn't let the reincarnated Wisdom King continue to be so rampant. If she continued to fight like this, the shrimp soldiers and crab generals next to her would really not take her seriously. Although she had regarded these guys as clay dogs before, once there was an opponent on the field who could restrain her, these guys would cause great trouble for her. The Battle of Suyi 900 years ago had taught the mystical silver fox a heavy lesson. She could not repeat the same mistake. The mystical silver fox made up her mind and immediately jumped up. She had been as quiet as a virgin and as steady as a pine tree. At this moment she was as fierce as thunder, as fast as the wind, and as aggressive as the fire. The 7 tails of the mystical silver fox slapped out fiercely, as if they were lashing a whip in the air. With an explosive sound, the air around them suddenly dang out a ring of air waves, and the mystical silver fox was shocked. "You almost there?" The mystical silver fox raised her eyelids and opened her eyes angrily. A bolt of lightning shot out of her eyes and went straight into the clouds. Li Yunyang was sitting high in the thunderclouds. In an instant he felt an extremely terrible aura coming at him. He subconsciously felt that he was in danger in front of him. Without thinking about it, he flipped his hands and slapped toward the empty place in front of him. As soon as he struck out with his palm, the mystical silver fox appeared in the position of his palm in an instant, as if the mystical silver fox had been sent to him on purpose. Li Yunyang had predicted the enemy's plan first, but he was not complacent at all. He saw the mystical silver fox let out a sharp roar, and her slender white hand came up to meet his palm. With a loud bang her palm hit him. In an instant, Li Yunyang felt an overwhelming force rushing toward him. His yang spirit was almost about to be slapped down from the clouds, and there was even a possibility that it would be smashed. The most terrible thing about fighting with the mystical silver fox was that any opponent who challenged the mystical silver fox could not make the slightest mistake. In a fight with others, if the yang spirit was smashed, it would be a big deal to gather it again. But if it was smashed by the mystical silver fox, the yang spirit would really be broken, and it would probably not be able to gather it again. Li Yunyang's yang spirit had originally been tempered by the thunder and fire Niden. After being transformed by the Renyuan Jindan, the Diyuan Jindan, and the Heavenly Jindan technique, it had already become extremely powerful and solidified. Especially after he had passed through the 9 stages of thunder retribution, his yang spirit was even more incredible. But even so, the collision of the 2 palms almost shattered Li Yunyang's yang spirit. Li Yunyang was shocked. He was secretly shocked by the strength of the mystical silver fox, but he was a strong person. At this time, not only was he not timid at all, but he became excited and fanatical. With a loud shout, the yang spirit changed in an instant. It turned into 3 heads and 6 arms, and his whole body turned navy blue. Red chi and black chi spewed out of his nostrils, and his whole body was surrounded by boiling blue flames. He roared and pounced on the mystical silver fox. The mystical silver fox was stunned, and then she was shocked and angry. "Reincarnated Wisdom King, how dare you fight with only your yang spirit body? Are you looking for death?" Li Yunyang sneered and said, "I don't know who will die yet." At this time his yang spirit had arrived, and his powerful magical weapon had not had time to keep up, so he could only fight with the Mahamudra Kung Fu. At this time he shook his body and turned into the real body of Wisdom King with 3 heads and 6 arms. His 6 arms quickly pinched the Mahamudra, and suddenly the speed of the Mahamudra bombardment increased by 3 times. Others saw that the bombardment speed of the Mahamudra had suddenly increased. If the previous rumbling sound was like a howitzer or a cannon, bombarding one shell after another, then now it was like a self-propelled rocket launcher. 1 hit was a string and 1 hit was a group. Everyone was stunned. Many of the Japanese cultivators who had confronted Li Yunyang on Mount Longhu looked pale. They were shocked in their hearts. It turns out that Lord Fighting Heavenly Lord didn't use his full strength at that time, did he? Or perhaps, in this short period of time he had become even more powerful? The Japanese cultivators didn't go through the Thunder Tribulation, so they naturally didn't know that once they passed the Thunder Tribulation, they would become even more powerful. Abe Neazin, who had been a little unconvinced by Li Yunyang and had a faint intention of competing with him, was even more shocked at this time. His eyes were wide open, and his whole body was trembling involuntarily. Gradually tears filled his eyes. These tears were not sad, angry, or afraid. They were just tears of unwillingness. As the young patriarch of the Abe family, he had been praised since he was a child as extraordinarily talented, extraordinarily intelligent and mature, and his future achievements will definitely be above his father, and so on. It could be said that he had grown up in a honey jar. The most powerful master he had ever seen in his life was the patriarch of his family. Therefore, the highest coordinate in his life was his father. He had always thought, to be able to catch up with my father is my lifelong dream. But suddenly he found that the highest goal in his life was so vulnerable. Under the thunderous attack of the mystical silver fox, he was killed in an instant. But this was not the most blow to him. After all, the mystical silver fox was the strongest demon in the past 1,000 years. Even in the most prosperous period of the Chinese cultivation world, there was no way to deal with this demon. 900 years ago, the Japanese cultivation world had suffered countless casualties, which was why the mystical silver fox, who only had one soul and two spirits, was sealed. It didn't seem to be a shame to die in the hands of such a peerless demon. However, Abe suddenly found that the young man he wanted to compare with was now fighting fiercely with the mystical silver fox with the mystical mystery fox. It seemed that they were neck and neck. This really shocked Abe Neazin so much that he couldn't speak. If it were me, I'm afraid I wouldn't even be able to move my fingers, would I? Why is this man who looks only a few years older than me so strong? The same was true for Jinren Wang Yuanshan. The whole Japanese cultivation world couldn't do anything about the mystical silver fox, but he had the power to face the mystical silver fox alone and almost killed him. Why? This series of questions buzzed in Abe Neazin's mind. The roaring sound of the Mahamudra bombardment in the sky made his eardrums tremble like a drum, making his body and mind tremble. At this moment, not only him, but also many Japanese cultivators could not help but be shocked by the same question. If there was only one top master in the Chinese cultivation world who could face the mystical silver fox alone, it would be fine. But why did Wang Yuanshan and Li Jiandong all have the power to face the mystical silver fox directly? There were so many masters here, but they couldn't do anything to the mystical silver fox even if they joined forces? Why was that? Abe Neazin clearly knew that the height reached by Li Jiandong in front of him was something that he would never be able to reach in his life. Even no one in the Abe family had ever been able to reach it. Even Yasukin Abe, who was known as the strongest in the history of the Abe family and had never been defeated in a fight, did not dare to fight with the mystical silver fox alone. Abe Neazin had always believed that the Abe family was the strongest on Myoji, and the Shinto of the Earth Imperial sect, which the Abe family believed in, was one of the strongest sects in the Shintoism and also one of the strongest sects in the world. Although it had declined now, it would definitely rise in his hands in the near future. But now, Abe Neazin knew that he was a frog at the bottom of a well. China was really full of hidden dragons and crouching tigers, and it was unfathomable. The cultivation world of this country had now fallen into the age of Dharma ending, and it had declined beyond recognition. It seemed that if the Japanese cultivators poked it with a finger, this behemoth, which had been powerful for 2,000 years, would collapse. But now, only then did they know how childish and ridiculous this idea was. For a moment, the cultivators of all sects in Japan gradually calmed down, looking at the fierce battle in the thunderclouds with extremely complicated expressions. They saw that the three-headed and six-armed body of the immovable Wisdom King appeared in the clouds from time to time, and sometimes it shattered the clouds, showing its golden body. The figure of the mystical silver fox was always hidden in the clouds, with only 7 golden fox tails rolling and shuttling in the dense thunderclouds, like 7 flood dragons. This fierce battle was really earth-shattering. Not only was the explosive power of both sides extremely amazing, but also their continuous fighting power and endurance were so strong that it was daunting. At this time, Li Jiandong's skin became darker and darker, and his whole face became as blue as iron. His 6 arms were like black sand, and the blue flame around him was so strong that it seemed to ignite the whole sea of clouds. His power was even stronger than before. When the cultivators of the 2 sects at the foot of the mountain saw this, they were extremely shocked. They didn't expect that Li Jiandong and the mystical silver fox could fight head-on for so long, and they could still become stronger and stronger. This was really terrifying. However, the mystical silver fox knew that Li Jiandong would not be able to continue like this for a long time, because his yang spirit body was far away from the cauldron, and it was impossible for him to continue fighting like this indefinitely. Although she could not take advantage of him for the time being, she would definitely be able to defeat Li Jiandong in one fell swoop. Li Jiandong was also well aware of this. Although he was a little anxious, he knew that he could not do anything at the moment. Otherwise, there would be endless troubles in the future. The mystical silver fox would never give him a chance. Li Jiandong was gritting his teeth and holding on. At this time, the meridians of the yang spirit all over his body were swollen as if they were about to explode. It was as if countless small snakes were coiling and rolling on his body, which looked extremely terrifying. After the mystical silver fox blasted away the 3 Mahamudra that Li Jiandong had slapped over, she finally found that the power of Li Jiandong's Mahamudra had begun to weaken. Although this kind of change was almost imperceptible, she was still keenly aware that Li Jiandong was a little weak. At this time she finally couldn't help laughing out loud. The immovable Wisdom King, prepare to die. I want you to have a taste of my soul being scattered in all directions. After that, she shouted sharply, and 7 foxtails rolled toward Li Jiandong from all directions, as if she had set up an inescapable net. She herself rushed toward Li Jiandong like lightning. At this time, Li Jiandong saw that her attack was like a chow, and it was coming fiercely. At this time, his breath was a little weak, and the body of the furnace had not arrived yet. He did not dare to fight head-on with the mystical silver fox in front of him. He immediately moved, and the yang spirit broke into countless small clones, which went in all directions. He wanted to escape through the gap in the foxtail net of the mystical silver fox before it was completely closed. The mystical silver fox was stunned for a moment, and then shouted, "Want to escape? It's not that easy." Her 7 foxtails rolled up like a strong wind. She didn't chase around but always chased after some of Li Jiandong's yang spirit avatars. She knew that with Li Jiandong's strength, it would be impossible for her to catch up with all of them if the yang spirit was broken into countless clones and fled in all directions. But if she only caught up with some of them, it would be easy. As long as her foxtail could sweep a part of his yang spirit avatar, she would be able to shatter it, and it would also cause a lot of damage to Li Jiandong. The gap between his strength and hers would be further widened. The mystical silver fox's plan was very precise. But at this moment, just as her foxtail was about to roll up Li Jiandong's scattered avatars, 2 beams of green light suddenly flashed in the sky, and 2 extremely sharp chi pounced straight at the mystical silver fox. Chapter 864. The mystical silver fox only felt that these 2 sharp chis were piercing to the bone. Even a strong person like her did not dare to underestimate them. She immediately retracted her foxtail, which was chasing Li Yundong, and stood in front of her like a barrier. With 2 crisp sounds, the 2 cyan lights hit the golden city wall. They did not even make a small pit and were immediately bounced away. At this time, the mystical silver fox took a closer look and found that the lightning was the Bahuang sword in the sword. Li Yundong's yang spirit clone got rid of the mystical silver fox's pursuit at this critical moment. He finally held on until his human cauldron rushed to the battlefield, followed by his powerful magical weapon as well as Su Chan, Ziyuan, Zhou Qin, and the others who arrived later. As soon as Li Yundong's human cauldron rushed to the battlefield, the yang spirit clones scattered around immediately gathered in his body. Although the yang spirit could fight alone, if it was too far away from the human cauldron, it would cause the effect of a guest army expedition and consume a lot of unnecessary spiritual energy and jinqi. At this time, Li Yundong's yang spirit returned to the aperture. Suddenly, the internal organs of the human cauldron began to run. His qi and blood ran quickly, and he immediately made up for the jinqi that Li Yundong had lost before. In just a breath, Li Yundong was full of energy again, and his eyes were full of divine light. The mystical silver fox suddenly saw the Bahuang sword, and then saw 3 experts at the level of thunder retribution suddenly appear in the sky. Her heart was even more shocked. The mystical silver fox knew that she had missed the best opportunity to defeat the reincarnated Wisdom King. Although she felt a little regretful in her heart, the mystical silver fox's will did not waver at all. She narrowed her eyes and looked at Li Yundong with a sneer. Her 7 fox tails slowly wrapped around her as if she was waiting for him. She said, "Well, Wisdom King. I haven't seen you for 1,000 years, but you are still as cunning as ever." At this time, Li Yundong's yang spirit returned to its position, and his heart was at ease. He smiled slightly and no longer argued with the mystical silver fox. With a wave of his hand, the Bahuang sword and the sword instantly returned to his side. The sword chi was dense and the green light was lingering. At the same time, the burning thumb pot and the fan of 7 treasures also jumped out. One was surrounded by glazed green light, and the other was filled with golden light and black chi. The fan leaves stood like a wall, surrounding Li Yundong. The golden Sanskrit characters on them were shining in the air. They looked solemn and their clothes were burning like Buddha. At this time, Su Chan, Ziyuan, Zhou Qin, and the others rushed over in a hurry. They were all out of breath. When they saw that Li Yundong had put out all his powerful magical weapons with great fanfare, their hearts moved, and they all understood what Li Yundong meant. At this time, if the mystical silver fox rushed up regardless of everything, maybe the 3 of them would be caught off guard by the mystical silver fox. Li Yundong was very likely to be threatened in order to protect them. But the mystical silver fox was too suspicious and she was too smart. Sometimes, once a person was too smart, he had to think about everything first. Although it was not a bad thing to think about the future before entering the city, in the battle of fighting with methods is like using troops, the opportunity was fleeting. If he hesitated a little, the opportunity would be gone in a flash and he would never return. Ziyuan soon learned from Li Yundong's style. She took out the 2 powerful magical weapons that she had just lost and recovered and repaired. One of them, the azure glass mirror, was raised to the sky by her. The surface of the mirror was colorful, and it shone with a colorful divine light. It hit the mystical silver fox's body directly, like a searchlight, and locked her figure. Her other magic treasure, the purple gold luo pan, was floating in front of her. It spun around and emitted a purple gold radiance. It was unknown what it was used for, but from the majestic spiritual energy it emitted, it was clear that it was not an ordinary magic treasure. Although the mystical silver fox was experienced and knowledgeable, she had never seen these 2 powerful magical weapons. Her expression turned serious and she became more vigilant. Although she was not afraid of most magic arts and powerful magical weapons, if she met a powerful magical weapon that she was not familiar with and rashly fought with, she would probably suffer a great loss. Previously she had been sneak attacked by Hel Wuzhang, and she had almost died in the ditch. The mystical silver fox saw that there were 2 swords and 2 treasures around Li Yundong, and there were also 2 treasures around Ziyuan. The most exaggerated thing was that Zhou Qin, who was next to Ziyuan, also took out the cold sawtooth Vajra wheel called Chiwe. With a shake of her arm, the Vajra wheel around her arm flew into the sky in an instant, penetrated into the clouds and shuttled quickly, making a whooshing sound. It was faintly discernible. Sometimes it appeared, and sometimes it hung quietly in the sky, like a crescent moon. Then Zhou Qin shook out a fiery red leather whip from her waist. This powerful magical weapon was just a mediocre thing in LV Fingping's hands, but in Zhou Qin's hands, it became extremely sharp. With a shake of her long whip, the Vulcan's whip burst into blazing flames with a clatter. The snake head on the whip hissed, and it was obvious that it was not a powerful magical weapon to be trifled with. Seeing that Ziyuan and Zhou Qin had both taken out their 2 extremely powerful magical weapons at the same time, Su Chan was dumbfounded. She thought to herself, both Sister Ziyuan and Sister Zhou Qin have powerful magical weapons. What should I use? Do I want to show my fox's real body to scare people? However, the little girl also knew that the enemy at present was the mystical silver fox. If she revealed her fox's real body, she might cause some trouble. Although there were many people here who knew her, it was better not to expose some things. The little girl suddenly remembered that when she and Ziyuan had gone to Harrisburg in the United States, they had met Taoist Su Ling. After Li Yundong seized the Yu Huang Xiandu, he had given this powerful magical weapon to Ziyuan, but Ziyuan had given it to her in private. At that time, Su Chan didn't want such a powerful magical weapon, because she felt that it was a gift from Li Yundong to Sister Ziyuan, and it was not good for her to take it away. However, Ziyuan said that if she didn't want this powerful magical weapon, then she would smash it. She was so scared that she had no choice but to promise to keep it for her for the time being. At that time, her casual words finally made it possible for her to go into battle empty-handed. She immediately took out the Yu Huang Xiandu that she had brought with her. However, the powerful magical weapons of Li Yundong, Ziyuan, and Zhou Qin were all colorful. They were surrounded by divine light and looked majestic. Only her powerful magical weapon was a black wooden board floating in the air. There was no light and no spirit. From a distance it looked like a piece of rotten wood. It was really a bit of a wet blanket. Everyone saw her standing beside Li Yundong, a beautiful and lovely little girl, surrounded by magical weapons. In front of her stood a black wooden board that looked like a coffin. Looking at her appearance, she stared as if she wanted to scare people. However, her behavior, coupled with her natural charm, made people not think that she was scary at all. They only thought that she was a little funny, which made people unable to help laughing. The mystical silver fox saw these powerful magical weapons from afar. The black wooden board seemed a little familiar, but she couldn't remember what it was for a moment. Among the many powerful magical weapons, she was most familiar with the burning thumb pot and the fan of 7 treasures, especially the burning thumb pot. If such a powerful magical weapon was used by the reincarnated Wisdom King, its power would be so great that it would be terrifying for a fox demon like her. When the mystical silver fox saw that Li Yundong had brought 3 beautiful women of the Thunder Retribution and a lot of powerful magical weapons beside him, she was even more shocked. She knew that Li Yundong had come prepared this time. I'm afraid I can't be kind to him. At this time, seeing that Li Yundong had frightened the mystical silver fox, the cultivators of the various sects in the Middle Sun were all excited. They imitated his style and took out their own powerful magical weapons. For a moment, there were countless powerful magical weapons in the sky, and the sky was full of divine light. This scene was like countless shrimp soldiers and crab generals following behind the divine generals. As long as the boss rushed up, they would rush up together. One person spat and drowned the fox spirit. The mystical silver fox was furious. She couldn't help but raise her head and laugh angrily. Well, you're going to rebel? As she said this, she pointed at the fan of 7 treasures, which was closest to her, and shouted angrily, "You bastard, when I was the master of the Fox Zen sect, you were still a powerful magical weapon in my hand. Now you're helping the reincarnated Wisdom King to deal with me?" The powerful magical weapons also had fear. When the fan of 7 treasures was scolded by the mystical silver fox, the divine light around it suddenly disappeared. It was so scared that it began to tremble all over. The fan leaves collided with each other, making a clanging sound. It subconsciously wanted to turn around and escape. Li Yundong was shocked. He immediately pressed the fan of 7 treasures with one hand and instilled his jinqi and spiritual energy into it, making it gradually calm down. As soon as the fan of 7 treasures stabilized a little, the golden Sanskrit characters in the fan leaves immediately jumped out one by one, like a golden wall of words, burning fiercely. Li Yundong turned his wrist and quickly recited the mantra. A Mahamudra hit the golden Sanskrit characters on the golden wall. With a bang, the Mahamudra with a golden Sanskrit character hit the mystical silver fox heavily. The mystical silver fox's golden fox tail curled up and resisted the blow. Everyone heard a muffled bang. The figure of the mystical silver fox was slapped and swayed. Then, her golden fox tail, which was impervious to water and fire and was not afraid of almost all powerful magical weapons and magic arts, was hissing and emitting a burst of green smoke, as if it had been scalded by the golden Sanskrit characters. When everyone saw this, they were so excited that they began to shout loudly. This was a great shock. The mystical silver fox knew that the reason why she could be so fearless among the crowd was that these 7 golden fox tails could attack and defend, and she could advance and retreat freely. If these 7 fox tails were destroyed, it would not be so easy for her to fight against more than one enemy. The mystical silver fox was shocked and finally had the intention to retreat. She gritted her teeth and was about to escape when she suddenly heard a voice coming from afar. "Beans are cooked and beans are burned. Beans are crying in the cauldron. They are born from the same root. Why are you in such a hurry to kill each other? Su-chan, you were originally a member of our Fox Zen sect. Why are you helping outsiders to deal with our own people?" As he said this, a tall and burly man came from afar in the air. It was Lu Yi, the 8-tailed earth fox. As usual, we will carry out the free of charge to the end. Please support us with practical actions. If there are any chapters out of order, urging for updates, or wrong chapters, please register as a member of this site and send us a text message. We will do our best to meet your needs. Send it 24/7 hours a day. As usual, we will carry out the free of charge to the end. Please support us with practical actions. If there are any chapters out of order, urging for updates, or wrong chapters, please register as a member of this site and send us a text message. We will do our best to meet your needs. Send it 24/7 hours a day. Chapter 865. Lu Ye's appearance shocked Li Jiandong and the others. Su Chan's eyes widened and she stammered, "Grandmaster. You really didn't die?" "Sure enough." Lu Yi chuckled and gave Li Jiandong a meaningful look. It seems that you already understand? As he said this, Lu Yi bowed deeply in the direction of the mystical silver fox and said in a clear voice, Lu Yi, the 22nd leader of the Fox Zen School, pays his respects to the 4th leader of the Fox Zen School, the mystical silver fox. The mystical silver fox narrowed her eyes slightly and couldn't help looking Lu Yi up and down. Suddenly, she said suspiciously, I seem to have seen you somewhere? Lu Yi raised his head slightly and said, Grandmaster, I'm not talented. I've been working hard for more than 10 years in order to save you and revitalize our Fox Zen School. I could have met you earlier, but when I was in Jingdu, the bald donkeys of the Tiantai sect interrupted your birth, so I couldn't meet you until today. The mystical silver fox's face changed. Did you save me? Lu Ye's smile faded and he didn't dare to be arrogant at all. He lowered his head slightly and said respectfully, That's me. The mystical silver fox looked at Lu Yi, and her expression was a little uncertain. She was arrogant and conceited. Although she knew that it was impossible for her to escape from the seal for no reason, and that someone must have saved her, Lu Yi had pointed it out in front of everyone, which made her feel a little embarrassed. Lu Yi felt that the mystical silver fox's eyes were sweeping over and over his body, like a bone-scraping knife, which made him feel cold all over. He couldn't help but feel a little nervous. At this time, the people on the mountain where the Japanese cultivation world were located heard their conversation, and they all began to clamor. When Abe heard Lu Ye's words, he immediately roared angrily, Did you kill my grandfather? The monks of the Tiantai sect also glared at Lu Yi. This is the culprit in front of us. Kill him. He was the one who killed the great monk Sheng. Although Imagawa Kagumo had died in the hands of Li Jiandong in the end, the cultivators of the Tiantai sect also knew that if Imagawa Kagumo hadn't been seriously injured in the Demon Sealing War, he would have died. Therefore, in the final analysis, this account could indeed be counted on Lu Yi. When the other cultivators of the Tiantai sect heard Lu Ye's words, they were all furious. They didn't dare to provoke the mystical silver fox, but they still dared to provoke Lu Yi. All of a sudden, some cultivators of the Tiantai sect and Abe jumped forward and rushed at Lu Yi angrily. The distance between Lu Yi and the mystical silver fox was not far. With the ability of the mystical silver fox, she could arrive in the blink of an eye, but the mystical silver fox did not move at all. Although these people were not weak, Yi the Tiantai was Ming the Yi and said Fox He family. They were Hu Yi Lu Hu Lan Emperor He Yu Ming Dragon Li He Yun Li Yi Hu He family He They Lu Yi Hu Yu family Hu He Yi Yang family Chen Yar. Although these people were not weak, Lu Ye's Cosmos Emerald Pole was a magic weapon that could compete with the 7-star sword. The 7-star sword was one of the 5 great swords of Chinese Taoism. One could imagine its power. These Japanese cultivators had never seen this powerful magical weapon before. They saw an opium pipe pointing at their chests, and they all took out their weapons and powerful magical weapons to fight against it. With a clanging sound, the Qingquan jade rod smashed on the weapons and magical weapons of these people. Suddenly, countless sparks and ashes splashed out from the pipe. These Japanese cultivators didn't expect that this powerful magical weapon would have such a sinister effect. Suddenly, sparks splashed on their bodies and eyes. They were in so much pain that they scratched their eyes and chests crazily and cried out. At this time, Lu Ye's 8 foxtails quickly rolled up and swept toward Abe and the others. The Japanese cultivators on the top of the mountain were all shocked and said in surprise, Stop. Se Divine Light was entrusted by Abe Yasumi before his death, so he had been very careful about Abe Naoto. When he saw Abe Naoto rushing out recklessly, he immediately became highly vigilant. At this time, seeing Lu Ye's 8 tails sweeping over like a gust of wind sweeping fallen leaves, he was suddenly shocked. He immediately threw out a talisman that he had been holding in his hand. An invisible Shikigami appeared in front of Abe Naoto, who was covering his eyes and wailing in pain in an instant. Yusun Se Xingguang rescued Abe, but he couldn't save the monks of the Tiantai sect. These monks were rolled up by Lu Ye's 8 cyan fox tails, and suddenly disappeared. Everyone saw that the 8 foxtails suddenly tightened, and there was a crackling sound. The bones of these people had been squeezed into powder. Everyone was shocked. They didn't expect that Lu Yi was also such a strong master. A mystical silver fox was already very difficult to deal with. Now there was an 8-tailed fox? Could it be that God really wanted to destroy them? Everyone was looking at Lu Yi in horror, but they saw his 8 cyan foxtails shake, and a few bloody corpses fell from them, falling from the air. However, Lu Yi didn't even blink as if he had just trampled a few ants to death. His expression was still very humble. He said to the mystical silver fox, Grandmaster, Let me beat these inferior people for you. At this time, the mystical silver fox nodded slowly. Although she was offended because of her arrogance and conceit, she also knew that it was not a good way to fight alone. If someone had helped her in the two fierce battles, the consequences would have been completely different. Especially now that she was fighting against her 1,000-year-old enemy again, she really needed help. Moreover, no matter what, the person in front of her was a member of the Fox Zen school and a benefactor who had saved her. There was no need for her to fall out with him. Seeing that Lu Yi was also a powerful eight-tailed fox, the mystical silver fox finally accepted his appearance and said, "Well, it's rare that there are juniors in the Fox Zen school who have such thoughts, unlike some people." As she said this, she glared at Su Chan with sharp eyes. Seeing her glare, Su Chan was a little afraid. She subconsciously hid behind Li Jiandong, but soon she summoned up the courage to grimace at the mystical silver fox with a grimace. The mystical silver fox was furious in her heart and snorted angrily. She hated traitors the most in her life. Seeing that the people of the Fox Zen school had turned against her sworn enemy, she was so angry that her teeth itched. She couldn't wait to crush Su Chan's bones and scatter her ashes to make her feel comfortable. Seeing that Su Chan still dared to provoke her, her killing intent immediately rose and she was eager to have a try. Seeing that she was about to rush forward, Li Jiandong immediately took half a step forward and stood in front of the mystical silver fox like a mountain, protecting Su Chan's body. His eyes were like lightning as he stared at the mystical silver fox, which immediately made the pressure on the mystical silver fox increase greatly. She did not dare to act rashly. At this time, another person flew over leisurely from afar. This person had a high nose and deep eyes, and a wisp of yellow beard under his chin. He did not look like a person from the Central Plains at all, but he was Wang Jinyuan, the leader of the Gizao sect. As soon as Wang Jinyuan appeared, he immediately stopped in midair and narrowed his eyes to quickly observe the situation on the field. Many people on the top of the mountain of the Chinese cultivation sects were overjoyed to see the leader of the Chinese Taoist external alchemy sect appear. They said loudly, "Master Wan, you came at the right time. Let's kill the demons together." Wang Jinyuan didn't seem to hear it. He just slowly stroked his beard, his eyes shining brightly, as if he was quickly measuring the comparison between the two forces on the field. Lu Yi seemed to know what he was thinking. He said coldly, "Wang Jinyuan, do you want to go back on your word at the last minute? Do you want to nullify the agreement between you and me? Don't forget that you were involved in all of this." Lu Ye's words shocked all the cultivators of China. The cultivators who had called out to Wang Jinyuan before suddenly felt as if they had been slapped in the face. Their faces were burning and they widened their eyes, unable to speak. Wang Jinyuan snorted coldly in his heart, but he broke into a smile. He laughed and said, "Jinren Lu, you don't have to push me. I, Wang Jinyuan, am a man of my word. If I say I will help you, I will definitely help you." As he spoke, he moved and landed next to Lu Yi. At this time, all the cultivators of China were furious. They pointed at Wang Jinyuan and shouted abuse. Wang Jinyuan pretended not to hear them. He still had a wicked smile on his face, but his small eyes were narrowed. From time to time, there was a flash of cunning in them. When Li Yundong saw that the two guys who had been hiding behind the scenes and secretly controlling all this had finally appeared, he immediately became vigilant. He couldn't help but look at Ziyuan and see a trace of surprise in each other's eyes. He couldn't help but think of the conversation between the two people he had overheard when he had visited Mount Gizao at night. Now it seemed that they must be Lu Yi and Wang Jinyuan. The two of them had set up such a big trap so it could be seen that they had a big plan. Now that they had all appeared, it meant that the time had come for them to reveal their true intentions. It also meant that they would not show up here if they were not absolutely sure. After glancing at the cunning Wang Jinyuan, Li Yundong's somewhat complicated gaze finally fell on Lu Yi. He looked at the man in front of him, who looked very strange but had a very familiar identity. He said in a deep voice, "Senior Lu, I respect you as the former leader of the Fox Zen school, so I will call you senior for the last time. However, there are a few things I don't understand that I want to ask you." Lu Yi smiled slightly. "Oh, there are also things that Wisdom King doesn't understand. I don't dare to ask for advice. If you have something to ask, just ask." Li Yundong said in a deep voice, "When I was in the Zhuji phase and went to Tibet, I heard someone remind me in the Kathuo temple. Was that person you?" Lu Yi nodded. "Yes, it was me." Li Yundong's eyes narrowed and he asked, "You passed on the position of the leader of the Fox Zen school to me in order to hide it from everyone, didn't you?" Lu Yi smiled slightly. "Yes." As he said this, he looked at Li Yundong with interest. To my surprise, I thought that you would be angry and impulsive because I used you, but I didn't expect that your cultivation has reached a state where you are neither shocked nor angry. Not bad, you are indeed the reincarnated Wisdom King. Li Yundong said lightly, I only agreed to take over the position of leader for Su Chan, not for anything else. You deceived me and used me, so what? Do you think I will be angry because of such a thing? Don't flatter yourself. Lu Yi couldn't help laughing. Well said. Is there anything else you want to ask? Chapter 866. Li Yundong snorted and asked again, when you faked your death, your disciples did it for you. Why did you kill your own disciple? Lu Yi snorted disapprovingly. Who told her to find out that I faked my death? Those who achieve great things don't care about small things. Li Yundong couldn't help but fly into a rage. They trusted you and followed you. When you died they were so sad. It's okay that you deceived them and did such a cruel thing, but you don't have any remorse? Are you still a human being? Lu Ye's expression was cold and his tone was even colder. In your eyes, I am not a human being, am I not? This sentence made Li Yundong choke and speechless. The prejudice against the Fox Zen school in the cultivation world was deep-rooted and almost irreversible. At that time, Shiyuan Temple had caught 2 big golden snakes and he had followed them all the way. In the end, one of the 2 big golden snakes had been killed by Zheng Yuan, and the other had died for love. Before dying, the big golden snake had said with great sadness, I hope I will never be a demon again in my next life. This sentence left a very deep impression on Li Yundong. He knew that the 2 countries had previously been repelled by those who were not of our race must have different intentions, let alone the huge gap between human beings and the demon clan. Li Jiandong took a deep breath and restrained all his anger in an instant. He took a deep look at Lu Yi and then asked, those who achieve great things don't care about trifles. I'd like to see how you are going to accomplish this great thing. Chao Yi and Lu Yuehong are also your spies in the Fox Zen school, aren't they? At this time, Lu Yi had completely shown his cards to Li Yundong. There was no need to worry about covering up for Chao Yi and the others. He laughed and said, yes, but it's a pity that they are not people who can do great things. They almost ruined my plan. Li Yundong said coldly, you found out early on that Yen Fang had sneaked into the Fox Zen school disguised as Emoashi. You had been planning this for a long time, hadn't you? Lu Yi smiled slightly and said proudly, that's right. As he said this, he looked at Li Yundong with great emotion and said, I had planned the layout a long time ago, but unfortunately, I lacked a person who could shoulder the heavy responsibility of the Fox Zen school for me. I had been looking for you for many years, but I didn't expect that you would. Before he could finish his words, the mystical silver fox, who had been silent all this time, couldn't help laughing and interrupted Lu Yi. You didn't expect that the person you had worked so hard to choose was my sworn enemy, the reincarnated Wisdom King. The reincarnated Wisdom King actually became the leader of our Fox Zen school? The mystical silver fox's laughter was full of indescribable sarcasm. This is really the funniest joke in the world. Lu Yi immediately looked terrified and said to the mystical silver fox, Grandmaster, it's all my fault for being blind. The mystical silver fox was also an ambitious person. Since she admitted what Lu Yi had done for her, she interrupted him with a smile and said, it's time and fate. This is destiny, not something you and I can control. That year, I was soft-hearted and spared the reincarnated Wisdom King's life. Then, I taught him how to cultivate and how to fight. Who would have thought that he would turn around and betray me? He brought people to torture my soul. I didn't expect that 1,000 years later, the person you carefully selected would be the reincarnated Wisdom King again. Is this a coincidence? No, this must be destiny. God wants me to face him once again. Li Yundong looked at the mystical silver fox with a dark face. He said coldly, Mystical silver fox, I don't care what the grudge between you and me in my previous life was. But if you want to do good deeds in this life, I won't interfere in your affairs. But if you want to do evil, don't blame me for subduing the demons. The mystical silver fox couldn't help laughing wildly. What is good and what is evil? What did I do wrong back then to provoke you to attack me? It's just because I'm a different species, a much stronger one than you, so you can't tolerate my existence. Li Yundong narrowed his eyes. Just as he was about to speak, he suddenly heard a Buddhist chant coming from afar. Amitabha. Everyone turned their heads to look and saw a group of monks dressed in yellow robes walking towards them from the foot of the mountain. Some of the monks were holding Buddhist staffs, some were holding alms bowls, and some were holding banners or rulers. They walked slowly, but every step they took was almost exactly the same. It was as if they were walking towards the mountain. "You almost there. You almost there." Li Yundong looked over and recognized that among the old monks, there were two whom he had seen before. They were the abbot of Shiyuan Temple and Jinshan Temple. Among them, Purin, the abbot of Shiyuan Temple, came over from afar. But as soon as he opened his mouth, his voice was as clear as a whisper. He said, "Mystical Silver Fox, what you did to Master Huefa back then, he kindly saved you, but you repaid his kindness with ingratitude. Such a thing is really intolerable. How can you quibble?" It would have been better if she hadn't mentioned this matter. As soon as she mentioned it, her blood-red eyes were filled with a ferocious killing intent. She said in a fierce voice, "It's all because you bald donkeys are arrogant and think highly of yourselves. You think that you are all the reincarnations of living Buddhas. There is no one else in your eyes but yourself. When you see that I'm a fox demon, you despise me. Humph, I treated Huefa sincerely, but he didn't care. If he hadn't looked down on my fox demon body, how could he have done this? Bald donkey, it's fine if you don't mention this today. If you mention it, I will definitely tear you into pieces." It was really a little terrifying to be threatened by the mystical silver fox. It could be said that being targeted by her meant that half of one's body had already stepped into the gates of hell. More than half of one's body had already died. When the other half would die, it would only depend on when she would make a move. Purin smiled slightly, formed a palm with one hand and said in a clear voice, "Amit Ba, death is just a retreat. What's there to be afraid of?" His words made many cultivators in the Japanese cultivation world who could understand Chinese secretly feel excited. They knew that Purin must have heard what they had said before. At this time when he said it, he also faintly praised their open-mindedness and fearlessness. Compared with Taoism and Shintoism, there was less filth and friction between the Buddhist cultivation world of China and Japan. Almost every year there was a large number of Buddhist exchanges between the two countries, and they were very close. Therefore it was reasonable for Purin to cover for them and make them lose face. At this moment Kaisai Hikari of the Xinyan Tantrism stood up and said in fluent Chinese, "Amit Ba, good, good. I wonder which eminent monk of China is coming?" Purin was elected as the leader of this trip by a group of monks. He smiled slightly and was about to speak when he heard the mystical silver fox in the air shouting angrily like thunder, "All the crows in the world are black. What's the difference between the bald donkeys in the world? You all deserve to die." After that, she let out a shrill roar and rushed toward Purin and the others like lightning. Li Yunyang was shocked and immediately blasted out a Mahamudra. This Mahamudra carried the golden Sanskrit characters on the psychic fan of 7 treasures, which had a strong effect of breaking the devil. Even the mystical silver fox did not dare to be careless. Her body just swayed and her whole body turned in the air. She turned around and rushed toward Li Yunyang and the others. However, the moment she turned around, she flicked her 7 golden fox tails and smashed them toward Purin and the others with lightning and thunder. The momentum was so fierce that the ground was lifted up by her. For a moment, sand and stones were flying, and a strong wind was blowing. Purin and the others quickly set up a formation on the spot and took out the powerful magical weapons in their hands. For a moment, a golden Vajra warrior appeared in the air. With a roar, it pounced on the mystical silver fox's fox tail. Their magic formation was not prepared to deal with the mystical silver fox, but to deal with Lu Yi. Moreover, Purin and the others were not stronger than Kaisai Hikari and the others in terms of personal strength. The magic formation set up by Kaisai Hikari and the others was also penetrated by the mystical silver fox, and there was no deterrent at all. At this time, how could Purin and the others resist the mystical silver fox? With this smash, the Vajra warrior was immediately smashed into pieces. Purin and the others were shocked. Several monks immediately vomited blood and fell down with their heads raised. Li Yundong and the others were shocked when they saw this. They wanted to rescue them, but they saw that the mystical silver fox had already rushed in front of them. Her white hand was as white as snow and she punched him in the face. The punch looked ordinary, but its power was so great that the hairs on Li Yundong's face stood on end. Li Yundong was horrified. He immediately flicked his finger on the burning thumb pot. At the same time, with a thought in his mind, the Wanhuang and Liuhe sword pounced on him from both sides like lightning. The leaves of the fan of 7 treasures in front of him closed with a swish, as if they had built a steel wall. At this time, Ziyuan, Zhou Qin and Su Chan, who were next to him, were coming at him aggressively. This punch seemed to be going to shatter the sky and tear the earth apart. Watching from the side, they felt the strong wind blowing on their faces, which made them almost breathless, let alone Li Yundong who was rushing forward. Although Ziyuan had 2 magic treasures in her hands, these 2 magic treasures were not used for direct combat, so they could not directly participate in the battle. She had to quickly take out the hidden 9th Heaven Ziyuan silk and stab it at the left side of the mystical silver fox. The 9th Heaven Ziyuan silk spun rapidly in the air, constantly pulling into the shape of a spear. The tip of the spear was like a spiral drill, spinning at a high speed. Even if it was an indestructible golden body, it would probably have a hole drilled through it. Zhou Qin was also unwilling to show weakness on the right side. The Chiwe was like an electric saw, making a clanging sound and chopping at the right arm of the mystical silver fox. The Vulcan's whip in her hand made a crisp sound with a snap. Like a wild snake spitting out its tongue, it bit at the fist of the mystical silver fox. Su Chan was the closest to Li Yundong. She gritted her teeth and was about to stand up, but she heard Lu Yi snort angrily. Su Chan, do you really want to be our enemy? Su Chan was stunned subconsciously, and then she saw Lu Ye's Qingkuan jade stick pointing at her. As soon as Lu Yi made his move, Purin and the others immediately chanted Buddhist scriptures loudly and set up a formation to cast spells. One by one, Vajra Arhats rose from the formation and pounced on Lu Yi. Seeing this, Wang Jinyuan laughed and said, "It's so lively, so lively. Let me see what the fellow Taoists of Shiyuan Temple and Jinshan Temple are capable of." As he said this, he also took out his Yellow River 9 Bends ruler and rushed toward the formation. At this time, the other cultivators of the Chinese and Japanese sects saw that the field was in a mess, and they all made their moves. For a moment, the situation on the field was extremely intense, and in an instant, it turned into a big battle. Chapter 867. The all-out attack of the mystical silver fox made the situation on the field extremely chaotic. Li Yundong's powerful magical weapons felt a terrible threat coming at their master, so they tried their best to protect him. The first one to bear the brunt was the Fan of 7 Treasures. As Li Yundong's strength increased, his own strength also increased. Although it could not change as freely as the 9th Heaven Ziyuan silk, it was also an extremely rare top-grade magic weapon that could attack and defend. Especially in the hands of the reincarnated Wisdom King, its power was extremely terrifying. The talisman of the Vajra Sutra engraved on the fan could break the demon body of the mystical silver fox, which was a great threat to the mystical silver fox. Therefore, the mystical silver fox was sure that if she launched a fierce attack on Li Yundong, this powerful magical weapon would automatically save its master. Therefore, at the beginning she attacked Purin, but in fact it was a feint. She went straight to Li Yundong. Everyone thought that she wanted to kill Li Yundong first, but in fact her real target was Li Yundong's Fan of 7 Treasures. At the moment, the Fan of 7 Treasures was piled up in front of Li Yundong like a circle of steel walls. It was surrounded by blazing golden Sanskrit characters, like a city burning with flames with great pressure. If it had been anyone else, they would have been overwhelmed by the terrifying aura of the Fan of 7 Treasures and would not have dared to come forward. However, the mystical silver fox was not afraid at all. Her entire body was wrapped in incomparably strong jinchi, and she punched the leaf of the Fan of 7 Treasures. Although the golden Sanskrit characters of the Fan of 7 Treasures could break the demon body of the mystical silver fox, it was because the Sanskrit Vajra Sutra itself had a strong effect of exorcising demons and evil spirits. However, it could not do anything to the purest spiritual power in jinchi. In this world, magic power and true essence were invisible, untouchable, and illusory. They were like air, formless and intangible, and could be dispersed. However, they did not possess any attributes, and could not be restrained by anti-magic treasures. Although the mystical silver fox's demon chi was extremely heavy, its dharma power and jinchi came from the yin-yang spirit. It was peaceful, pure and vigorous without any evil chi. Her fist slammed into the Fan of 7 Treasures psychic fan, and with a loud buzzing sound, the golden Sanskrit flames surrounding the fan were shattered. Some of the blades were even dented and distorted beyond recognition. The moment she blasted the Fan of 7 Treasures, the Bahuang sword and the other swords around her also whistled in an instant. Zhou Qin and Ziyuan's powerful magical weapons also came straight from the left and right sides. The mystical silver fox's punch almost destroyed the psychic Fan of 7 Treasures in an instant. She saw that the psychic fan was trembling and wanted to escape. She was about to continue to chase after it when she saw a whip surrounded by flames on her wrist. This was Zhou Qin's Vulcan's whip. The moment the snake head of the Vulcan's whip wrapped around the mystical silver fox's wrist, it immediately hissed and spat out its tongue, biting towards the mystical silver fox's wrist. At the same time, the ninth heaven Ziyuan silk drilled into the mystical silver fox's waist like a drill. The human waist was the softest, and it was one of the most vulnerable and important parts of the human body. If it was drilled like this, it would either die or be disabled. Seeing that they were besieging her, the mystical silver fox immediately snorted angrily. She backhanded her elbow and smashed it behind her. At the same time, her small arm swung out like an iron whip. It was the famous Overlord elbow in close combat. This seems simple, but it was extremely powerful. Ordinary martial artists would first practice push-ups on the ground with their elbows, then practice on the cinders, then practice on the fine glass slag, and finally practice on the iron nail board. Their elbows would be as hard as steel. With one elbow they could break a tree trunk as thick as an arm. Only then could they be considered to have achieved something. If an ordinary martial artist used this move to hit the vital part of a cultivator who had not reached the Jinshin phase, he would still be able to knock the cultivator to the ground. Could be seen how powerful this move was. Because this move was simple and practical, it was extremely powerful, so it was in all the martial arts moves of various sections. It could be said to be as common as black tiger steals the heart and monkey steals the peach. However, when the mystical silver fox used this move with the strength of the nine-tailed fox, its power was really terrifying to the extreme. She wrapped her whole body in real chi, and with the tip of her elbow she hit the side of the ninth heaven Ziyuan silk. Then she swung her arm like a steel whip, and with a snap the ninth heaven Ziyuan silk was sent flying far away. It was like a cricket master hitting a home run, and in the blink of an eye the magic weapon disappeared. Ziyuan and the ninth heaven Ziyuan silk were connected in mind. She instantly felt the power and horror of this move. Even though she was knowledgeable and experienced in fighting, she was so shocked that her heart was pounding. She knew that if the ninth heaven Ziyuan silk hadn't been a soft and invisible magic weapon, it would have been destroyed by this elbow. The mystical silver fox instantly blasted the ninth heaven Ziyuan silk away. At this time Zhou Qin's Vulcan's whip also bit her wrist. However, at this time her whole body was full of Jinqi, and she had the protection of the immortal Jinshin. How could she bite down? The mystical silver fox turned her head and looked at Zhou Qin coldly, as if she were looking at an ant trying to trip her with its feet. Her eyes were full of disdain. She grabbed the Vulcan's whip with her backhand and shouted, "Let go!" If it had been someone else, the powerful magical weapon would have been taken away by the mystical silver fox. However, Zhou Qin was extremely arrogant. When she saw the mystical silver fox looking at her with such a contemptuous gaze, and Li Jiandong was watching from the side, how could she bear it? Zhou Qin was similar to Li Jiandong. The more fierce her opponent was, the more violent she would be. Her fighting methods could be seen at the Taoist assembly. It was a typical method of using violence to control violence and the strong to defeat the strong. At this moment, Zhou Qin took a deep breath, and all the Jinqi in her body gushed out like a flood. She pulled hard with her backhand and shouted, "Come here." The mystical silver fox didn't use all her strength to pull, but Zhou Qin's cultivation was not weak, and she fought with all her strength. Therefore, when the two sides competed, they immediately fought to a draw, and even the mystical silver fox's body was shaken a little. The mystical silver fox couldn't help but be shocked, and then became furious. She crazily pulled back her hand and shouted again, "Let go." Zhou Qin only felt an irresistible and terrifying force. She knew that she could not resist it, but there was never the word escaped in her dictionary. Even if she knew that she was going to die, she would not retreat half a step. Zhou Qin clenched her teeth and was ready to fight back with all her strength. But at this time, Li Jiandong, who was watching from one side, was so nervous that his heart immediately jumped to his throat. He knew that Zhou Qin would definitely not let go, so he appeared beside Zhou Qin in an instant. He grabbed the Vulcan's whip in front of her with one hand and helped her pull it hard. In terms of pure strength, Li Jiandong's strength was no less than that of the mystical silver fox. After all, he was a man with 7 treasures. This pull could have pulled the mystical silver fox over, but the Vulcan's whip could not bear the force and broke into 2 pieces with a snap. As soon as the powerful magical weapon was broken, the spiritual chi contained in the middle leaked out, and the blazing flames around it were immediately extinguished. The snake head, which had been wrapped around the wrist of the mystical silver fox, suddenly turned back into the tip of the whip. It quickly slipped down and fell to the ground. They moved as fast as lightning. Before Su Chan had time to help, they had already fought back and forth for a few rounds. When Su Chan was about to enter the battlefield, Lu Ye's Qingkuan jade stick pointed at her aggressively. Su Chan had seen the power of this powerful magical weapon before. Slightly shocked, she immediately threw out the Yu Huang immortal capital in her hand without thinking. Lu Yi originally wanted to point at Su Chan's chest first and subdue her, which would also reduce the threat to the mystical silver fox. However, he didn't expect that the powerful magical weapon in Su Chan's hand could defeat all the powerful magical weapons in the world. No matter how strong the powerful magical weapon was, even the yellow Emperor Xuanyuan's sword would be exchanged when it met the Yu Huang immortal capital. Lu Yi saw that as soon as the Yu Huang immortal capital flew out, his proudest Chengkuan jade stick immediately stopped in mid-air, as if it had been fixed. Even the ashes falling from the pipes stopped in mid-air, visible to the naked eye. Lu Yi didn't expect that his powerful magical weapon would be destroyed like this. He was furious and couldn't help pouncing on Su Chan. At this time, Li Jiandong's eyes widened and a Mahamudra slapped toward Lu Yi. Lu Yi didn't dare to take it head-on and immediately retreated. At this time, the Vajra Arhat, who had flown out of the magic formation set by Purin and the others, also rushed over in the blink of an eye and entangled with Lu Yi. Without the protection of magic treasures, Lu Yi had no choice but to reveal his eight-tailed fox demon body. His body was huge like a small mountain standing in the air, entangled with these Vajra warriors biting and tearing at each other. The fight was unbreakable. At this time, Wang Jinyuan also took out his Yellow River Nine Ben's ruler and blocked some of the attacking magic and powerful magical weapons for Lu Yi. Lu Yi was an eight-tailed fox and his strength was extremely tyrannical. After showing his true form, his strength was almost doubled. The remaining magic and powerful magical weapons that hit him could hardly cause any damage to him. For a moment, he was facing the dense magic and powerful magical weapons of all the sects in the cultivation world of China with his own strength. At this time, the cultivation world of China had already experienced a fierce battle with the mystical silver fox. They had either suffered heavy casualties or lost all their masters. For a moment they were neck and neck with Lu Yi and Wang Jinyuan. Some cultivators with lower cultivation levels looked up at the sky and saw figures flashing in the sky. There were powerful magical weapons flying everywhere. The sky was colorful, especially the hands of Li Jiandong and the others and the mystical silver fox. Every move contained earth-shattering power. Every move on both sides was dangerous, which made people so nervous that they couldn't breathe. Such a level of skill was really rare in the world. They were stunned and their hearts were shaken. If it weren't for the fact that the field was too tense, they almost couldn't help cheering loudly. At this time, Li Jiandong, Ziyuan, Zhou Qin, Su Chan, and the others launched an airtight siege on the mystical silver fox. Li Jiandong, Ziyuan, and Zhou Qin relied on their powerful magical weapons to launch a fierce attack on the front and the left and right wings. Because Su Chan was unarmed, her only powerful magical weapon had been thrown out to exchange for the heaven and earth jade rod. She had to wander quickly and hit the mystical silver fox from time to time. She didn't show her fox demon body, so she couldn't pose a threat to the mystical silver fox. She was like a bee buzzing beside her and from time to time she would sting people. Although she couldn't kill people, it was very annoying. The mystical silver fox fought against 4 masters of thunder retribution alone, but she still stood firm. She was not at a disadvantage at all. Her strength really shocked everyone present and made them gasp in amazement. Ziyuan, who was standing aside, observed the situation in the field slightly. She saw that most of the cultivators of all sects had suffered losses after the previous battle, and Lu Yi was a living army. If he continued to fight with Purin and the others, he might not suffer a loss. Especially at this time, the mystical silver fox became crazier and crazier as she fought. Her strength became more and more powerful, and the ferocious murderous aura in her eyes became more and more intense. She couldn't help but send a voice transmission to Li Jiandong and said anxiously, "Li Jiandong, it's not the way to go on fighting like this. If the mystical silver fox continues to fight like this, her chi and blood will flow at a high speed and boil violently, which will greatly accelerate the devouring and integration of Chao Kefi's memories and divine senses. When she completely devours Chao Kefi's memories and divine senses, it will be impossible for you to save her." Li Jiandong's heart sank. He quickly glanced at Ziyuan as if asking, "What should I do?" Ziyuan took a deep breath and said decisively and firmly, "You control the purple gold luo pan and the sky-reaching glass mirror. The 3 of us will hold her back." You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.